which I was worried about. Good evening. Welcome to the Board of Selectmen's meeting, Monday, September 25th, 2017. Mr. Clerk, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, on the agenda tonight, we have, we'll open up with reading the mail. Second item on the agenda is a joint meeting with FinCom, who's present, school committee, also present. In that meeting, that is a meeting to finalize the FY 2019 budget directives and priorities. At 7 p.m., public input and members' input. I asked if there is any public input, just be recognized, announce your name and your address, and any comments should come through the chair. Next up is a Park and Rec Commission Fields Needs Assessment presentation. Then we'll have an update, an update on the Littleton Common Sewer and site screening. Rotary Club is going to give us a presentation on a proposed gazebo on the Common. Then we'll have special town meeting finalization of warrant articles and the order of the articles, direct the posting of the warrant, and then we'll adopt article recommendations. Eighth on the agenda is Town Administrator, Assistant Town Administrator report. We have a commuter rail shuttle update tonight, as well as a MART drug and alcohol policy. Then we'll approve some minutes, and we will adjourn. So, Mr. Bergman, if you could lead us in the mail here.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. First, and perhaps if Chief Wozinski joins us tonight, he can give us an update, but certainly wanted to call to the attention of the meeting the fact that firefighter EMT Scott Holt is still dealing with his injury that he suffered on duty. We're all thinking of Scott. There has been a fund that's been established for him. I've got the address up on the screen, and we're all pulling for him. And he's been getting so many visitors that they're having to set up a schedule. I just went in, and a week ago he was doing fine, but I know that there are many folks that have been thinking of Scott and his family, and we are all thinking of them as well. So we also have in the packet an annual invitation that we get from the Archdiocese of Boston for a special mass for our public servants who are public safety personnel. We have a notice from the Massachusetts Department of Conservation and Recreation grant that was awarded for $6,566 for a boardwalk for the Cloverdale Conservation Area. So thanks to the Conservation Commission and the Conservation Trust for their work in getting that grant. We have a written report from the Director of Parks and Recreation and Community Education on the initiative that Park and Recreation Commission is launching regarding youth sports organizations and what their relationship will be in the future with Parks and Rec. And it's helpful to have the written briefing. I know that we want to get some more information on that at an appropriate time. Alicia this is her anniversary, 5th anniversary. She's not here. She's be coming back later this week, but we'd have an opportunity to hear from them and have a conversation with Park and Rec. So we're all on the same page about what that is about.
And there's, if I may, there's been some, over the years, there's been a lot of conversation around where the responsibility lies, and, as far as what can a youth organization do as far as fundraising and boosters and all that kind of thing. So there's been kind of a hazy line or a gray line, and this is designed to help to better define this is a youth organization, this is Park and Rec, and hopefully it'll allow for Park and Rec to focus on those things that will help it to remain self-sustainable. So it's, I think it's a positive, and I look forward to getting an update. I think we all do look forward to getting an update from Alicia and the commission, and any input from the youth organizations that they feel would help us. Thanks, Keith.
Next, we have an update from the Boston Region Metropolitan Planning Organization. This is the MPO, which is in charge of the TIP project, yet another acronym. And we are seeking some serious money in the Transportation Improvement Program in the next couple of years. So I've just put this in here as a reminder to staff and to us all that we'll be plugged into that timing, that program. Then last, I have included some information about the Selectmen's retreat, for which plans are being made. The date is Wednesday, October 4th at 6:30 p.m. We've arranged a facilitator, Franklin Town Administrator, dare I say former Stoneham Town Administrator as well, Jeff Nutting, who has facilitated similar retreats for boards of selectmen across the Commonwealth. And Jeff is available to work with us, and we've arranged to have an off-site at the conference room at the Marriott Courtyard, Littleton, as the proposed venue. And there's a list of questions which the facilitator would like to have each of you respond to, so that he can spend some time organizing what that session would be.
To try to get the most out of it.
Based on what you'd like to cover.
Yeah, so I just make sure that we're all focused on that and get that information to Jeff by this Wednesday. I'll follow up with Chase and Mr. Glavy and make sure that they get those in as well. And I'd ask that, at a minimum, Keith, you and Mr. Ansaldi submit your...
Sure.
There you go. You have a copy in the packet.
Okay.
I think it'll be important and helpful to Jeff, from the administration, to understand what the expectations are and make that meeting the most productive one we can.
Very good.
Did you, the nomination paper for the MPO, or is that?
We had submitted, I think that was your copy, we had submitted signed on for the town of Lexington to be nominated so that they will be one of the communities standing for election on the MPO.
So we endorsed them and supported them with hopes of them supporting us as we...
It's helpful to have someone we know or a neighbor who knows about our issues, so.
Exactly. Thank you very much for the mail. I do want to, maybe offline, you and I can talk about that, the Mass on October 1st. I may attend that, so I know there's
great.
an RSVP.
Okay,
So I
excellent.
might pick up my mom and take her to Mass Sunday. All right, so next up is the joint meeting. Everybody in session? All right, so we've got I guess some guidelines. Mr. Bergman, so we've got,
Yes, this is our annual meeting with the Finance Committee and the School Committee to set the procedure and goals for the coming budget year, and I'd refer to our Finance Director, Bonnie, to walk us through this.
Basically, this is just the guidance document that's given to the departments in crafting their budgets. My recommendation this year is the same as it has been the past few years, in that two budgets are crafted. One is the level staffing or required services budget. So again, no new programs, no additional staffing, unless there's a mandate around it that requires it. And the expenses for the department level funded at the 2018 level. Off of that, we would also request the departments to craft a mission budget, which is the budget that they feel that best meets the needs of the community. So it might involve additional staffing or other programming or services. It might be level staffing, depending on the needs. Both of these budgets, where we are currently looking at expiring collective bargaining agreements for the town, they all expire June of 2018. So these will be crafted with the current pay scales, and any collective bargaining, negotiating, any results of the comp and class study that we're currently underway will be incorporated into the budget process as you approve them and they're reviewed and accepted. So I will track that. We've done that in the past, and it works fine. We keep all the staffing data here, so it's just easy for me to adjust for it. If they're requesting anything in the mission budget that is an expansion of services, we also ask the departments to tell us if it's going to increase any revenue, or if there's another area that would change within the operating budget because of that. This has worked well in the past few years, so we'd like to continue with that process if the board is okay with that. We are very, very, very early into this 2019 budget process. We have not finalized valuations, so a lot of the levy information is kind of in flux over the next month. So I'll have more data as we go through the fall and the winter. But just starting, where we are right now, a level staffing budget does create a deficit of about $207,000. The preliminary review looks like the revenue is increasing by about 2.96%, and on the level staffing budget, the expenses would increase about 3.5%. Again, that sounds like a large number. It is a large number, but this early in the process, it's not an unusual number. I looked at last year's and it was about 250, so
Yeah.
it's kind of in that same neighborhood. And those revenue figures get flushed out again through the classification hearing process, so we will be getting some more information fairly quickly. And we also ask that when the departments are submitting their budgets, that they be mindful of the adopted goals of the Board of Selectmen. I provide that to them along with their budget documents so that they can target those areas. But it's always helpful if the board has a particular goal that they would like to see addressed in the budget cycle to kind of flush that out earlier than later.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Any comments? Cindy?
I don't have anything right now.
I have a question, if I may, since we have the school committee here and FinCom. From my time on the school committee, I know that you've got a different reality today than you may have had in June, July, based on school being open. So if there is a different reality and out-of-district placements have gone up by a certain percentage or a certain value, obviously the sooner we know that, the better. So I guess that's my ask. Is there an increase in out-of-district?
Yeah, there is. So we found out just actually recently that we had an increase that was unexpected but not insurmountable of about $200,000 in out-of-district placements. So for those of you who don't know what that means, that's primarily out-of-district sped costs. So it's not in our control, not in the administration's control. Kelly can speak more about it, but we've been reassured that that's something that we can probably absorb with cost savings. The administration's been incredible going above and beyond the past couple of years about making savings that were unanticipated at the beginning of the year, so we're pretty confident that we shouldn't have any, correct me if I'm wrong, Kelly, but I don't think it is anything that we're worried about at this time. But do you have anything else you want to add to that?
Excuse me, not at this time. It's very early in the year, and there's a significant turnover every few years in terms of our out-of-district population. This year was one of those years, so we're actually still placing some students. So we'll keep you posted as we finish the process.
Very good. Appreciate that. Again, the sooner we get the information, the easier it is to have these conversations.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Mr. Chairman, do we have another opportunity? We have one other topic we wanted to bring up. I don't know if there's another time on the agenda to bring that up, or
Is it germane to the
budget.
the budget?
Yeah.
I think it's appropriate.
Okay. I just wanted to point out, I think maybe the chairman of the school committee reached out to you about the increase in the school choice funds that we didn't anticipate during budget season, and just wanted to make sure that you had everything you needed for that. It came out to about $15,000 increase or so.
Chapter 70.
Oh, yeah, sorry, what did I say?
School choice.
Sorry, chapter 70 funds, yeah.
You get to keep those.
Thank you.
That was what they might call Freudian slip. But yeah, sorry, the chapter 70 funds came in a little bit higher than we anticipated, than we're budgeted for, and just wanted to make sure you needed everything that you needed from us, so getting that transfer.
Bonnie, you can correct me if you want to, but I think that you and town administrator have worked to,
Yeah, the motion was crafted.
Yeah, there's a motion that we can have the Board of Selectmen adopt. Technically, the budget is the school committee, so if the school committee hasn't voted to propose an increase, it would be helpful if you did that, certainly prior to town meeting, but even prior to us publishing the booklet.
Okay.
Sure.
But we've got the format I shared with Mike and Chuck, the form of what the motion
Okay, great.
would be. We
We've
could
got a meeting
certainly
on
do
Thursday,
that,
so
yeah.
we can
And with Kelly, yeah.
go over that. Oh, yeah, October 12th.
Excuse me, and if they can have the exact amount to vote?
Yeah.
Just so there isn't kerfluffle on town meeting floor over $50, whatever it is.
Number I saw was 15,000.
through the chair.
Yeah, and change, we can round it
Yeah,
up or down.
yeah, the
whatever.
incremental amount was 15,000 and something.
Yeah, I think that we've got some flexibility to make an amendment, and that language has been crafted. So Mr. Fontanella does have that, and we can certainly share it with the rest of the school committee and FinCom.
And then one other thing I think relative to next year's budget we gotta watch is the circuit breaker reimbursement. I think we were estimating 75% based on the historical push, and then there was some blurb that it might only be 65%. So we're gonna have to watch how the state legislature budgets that final number, because that could have budget impact, obviously.
Yeah, sure, for sure, yeah. All right, so there's a couple of heads up, couple of flags for us to keep an eye on.
Yeah, it's $15,890 is the difference between what we understood the figure to be back at town meeting and what it actually is. So that's the difference.
I knew it was between 15 and 8 million, so.
Appreciate that. FinCom Chairman, any questions, comments from yourself or FinCom? Anyone? Good deal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Board, any questions, comments?
No.
No?
No.
Okay, so I guess we can entertain. So we've got level staffing required services is A under our proposed motion, and mission budget. So we'll look at a motion on approval of both of those.
Are we doing both?
Yes.
Yeah, so we want both prepared for planning purposes.
Move the Board of Selectmen vote to request two department budget scenarios be prepared for the fiscal year 2019, mindful of the Selectmen's adopted goals. A, level staffing required services, budget prepared with the same staffing required services as fiscal year 2018, inclusive of increases to support only any steps in salary schedule adjustments that may be contractually due on the existing salary schedules, expenses to be level funded at the fiscal year 2018 amount. B is a mission budget, which is the budget prepared with the staffing levels as the department head and reporting authority feels necessary to provide sufficient service to the community. Any enhanced staffing expense levels must be submitted with full documentation justifying why the increase is necessary and the expected outcome of increased services. Increased services, decreased public safety incidents, additional revenues, etc.
So moved and seconded. Is that a vote taken by all boards, correct?
Board of Selectmen, FinCom usually looks for the Board of Selectmen to take this vote.
Okay. So moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time, and we'll make sure that we get that language Through Mr. Fontana to all of you.
I'll let them know to expect it.
Pardon me?
I'll let them know to expect it.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, if there is any public input, I'd ask. Yes, ma'am?
Can they come to the front?
Sure. Just ask that you give your name. You can come on
Oh,
up.
thank you.
Yeah, whatever you're comfortable with. Just your name and your address.
Sure. My name is Demetra Taylor. I reside at 115 Taylor Street. I am the vice chair of the Library Board of Trustees. However, I am not representing the library tonight. I am here as a volunteer parent for Shaker Lane Elementary School. On behalf of Shaker Lane, I would like to invite members of the Board of Selectmen to be guest readers at our Book Fair Family Night taking place on Tuesday, October 3rd from 4:30 to 7:30 p.m. The Book Fair is one of our most important fundraisers of the year. We hold one in the fall and in the spring. Our Fall Book Fair is our most popular and most widely attended by the Shaker Lane community. We rely on the profits to purchase educational resources for the classrooms, fund our school-wide field trips, and renew our educational software programs that the students use for reading and mathematics. Last year, our book fairs brought in a combined revenue of $10,500. $8,500 of those dollars we used to purchase books for the classrooms, reading specialists in the school library. So the outpouring of community support during this event is astounding. We have residents who don't have children in Shaker Lane who buy books for our library and classroom every year. So we are extending the invitation to all members of the community this year. We would love to have your presence, even if you cannot be a guest reader for our book fair. We'd just like you to come and see what it's all about. I have here some information
That's great.
regarding that.
Please share it.
This is the first year we are inviting community members to be guest readers. Usually we have members of the Shaker Lane staff that read to our students on this event. As you can see in the information that I provided, most of our slots are filled, and they will probably fill up by tomorrow. However, we would love to see
That's
your
fast.
face. Well, we'd love to see your faces there regardless,
Yeah.
so the members of our community can see their Board of Selectmen in case they don't watch the meetings or attend them.
That's great.
It's great.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. We get to pick the books. I don't want anything too tough, or there's going to be words I'm going to trip over.
Yes, yes. In the packet, there will be books provided for you in case you don't bring your own. We only ask that you read for 10 minutes. 1 to 2 books will cover that amount of time, and you can choose whatever you want to read. Our theme this fall is the Wild West, and we are actually going to have a jail cell there for students to take pictures and pretend that they're in jail. I just received these decorations from the Brownie Troop that just held a meeting over in the Cooper Room in the library, so everybody is hard at work decorating and preparing for this event.
great.
This is big for Shaker Lane, so it's important to our community.
That's great. Thanks very much for coming out. It's Tuesday, October 3rd, folks,
Yes.
from 4:30 to 7:30 p.m. at Shaker Lane. Pizza and drinks will be available.
Yes.
purchase.
Courtesy of the Littleton Sub Shop.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, good luck with it, and so we'll have to act fast to get in there.
I'll be there.
I'm gonna have to take something on the later side. When the kids are sleepy. Awesome. Love sharing that kind of stuff. Anyone else? Public input? Okay, how about any member input? Does anybody have anything they'd like to share with the board or with the public? Want to go, Ms. Knox?
Oh, I'm gonna leave it up to you to talk about this because you deserve to, but at this point, I just want to thank you, yourself, AFRAC, and Anthony for all the work they did. And I won't steal anything else from you.
Feel free to steal. It was an awesome night, and a couple of nights. And
Thank you.
Continues to be awesome. Thank you. Chase.
I'd like to recognize the excellent work that the Littleton Road Race did to put on an excellent race. It's about 200 finishers between the 5K and the 1 mile fun run, which I got to take my son on. And so my understanding is they split half the proceeds between the Littleton Track and Field and Loaves and Fishes. So not only are they doing it for athletic pursuits, but they're doing it for our community as well. So, and on top of that, the winners of the 1 mile fun run, Spencer Covette at 6:13 for the men, Shay Regan at 6:32 for the women. So some smoking fast 1 mile times there.
Look over those Regan kids.
Yeah. Yeah, I coach with, Coach Pee Wee's with Kevin, and Shay's out there helping us coach the little kids play soccer too.
Good stuff.
That's fun.
Yeah.
So I was at the road race myself. I walked it with Maureen Woods. So we had a really good time. I actually watched Chase and his son cross the finish line. So that was
Dead last.
that was really
You
cute.
finished.
It was
We finished.
and that was a wonderful event. The other thing I wanted to mention, I wanted to thank everyone who came out to help paint the VFW. We painted the function room a couple weekends ago, which was great. We put out a little blast that we needed some help with that. So I wanted to personally thank Maureen Woods, Hal Baker, John Borowski, Deputy Chief Patterson, Don Beltrami, Ed Williams, Jane Rossetti, and our chairman, Chuck DeCoste, for coming out to help with that project. I also wanted to thank Linda Giannetta from Room for Change, who helped pick out the paint colors, and Stephen Bradley from American Painters for leading us as amateurs with that project. So I really appreciate the support. It was wonderful.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
I just came because there were free hot dogs. Yeah, I guess, Joe, I appreciate your kind words. This past Thursday night, we had a phenomenal meeting, a gathering at Alumni, the complex, and we did an open house. And the open house was the brainchild of Mr. Ansaldi, so I thank him from the bottom of Littleton's heart for helping to put that together. And it was such a community event. There was so many people there. And when you turned around and you looked on that field after we did cut the ribbon, we had Mr. and Mrs. Ogilvy, George and Lee Ogilvy, and Millie McGovern cut the ribbon for the official opening of the facility. And some people that have given very much to the community, and it was pretty awesome to see them do that. And then just to see the kids rush. There was a wave of, not just kids, there was just a wave of people that went out onto that field. And the sunset was just, Keith grabbed a couple of pictures, and it was just, it was breathtaking. It was like someone was shining down on us. It was a fantastic night. The schools, Mr. Clenchy and Mr. Mark and some staff manned the grills, and there was hot dogs donated by Acton Refrigeration, which was the schools graciously grilled up for everybody. There was some water bottles that were donated by our OPM. Oh. And tell Diane, I'm sorry, I ruined her little presentation, but water bottles were donated and they were given out to folks as they came in through the gates. It was just a nice, nice giveaway and a nice commemoration. And then on Friday night, we opened the field with the first football game, and Gale Associates sponsored Terrible Towels, so there was a lot to cheer about on Friday night. The Tigers won 22-0. There's a soccer game over there right now. It's a facility that is going to get a lot of use. It's truly, somebody had coined the phrase a community center, an outdoor community center, and based on the couple of events that we've had there so far, it really was. So I've said a lot of thank yous this weekend, and I can't thank everybody enough. You know, whether everybody in this room, the FinCom certainly, the schools, AFRAC, everybody here, and just everybody that came out to vote, and it just Gale Associates, Vertex, Green Acres, Classic Construction. There's just so many people to thank. It just look at that. There's our muscle right there. It was a wonderful night, and if you haven't had an opportunity to get down there, it's an open facility, so please get down there. The restroom facilities are fantastic. The snack shack was jammed all night on Friday night, and it was pretty cool to see that come to fruition. So thank you, everybody. All right. Don't forget about the Shaker Lane Book Fair, Tuesday night, October 3rd. I'm off track, a little misty with that whole alumni field.
That's why I gave you the towel.
And Diane, unsung hero as well, just behind the scenes, Diane did so much to help us out, and she was there with giant scissors for the ribbon cutting. Patrick Flynn was there on Friday night to do the ribbon cutting on Friday night for the first interscholastic sport event. Just really, really cool to be a part of that. All right, next up, we have Park and Recreation Fields Needs Assessment Presentation. So, I assume John's and Gary, folks from Gale, and Tim, you're welcome to sit where you are, come up front, whatever you want. John, if you want to come up front, yeah, just because the microphone's there, it might be a little bit easier.
Here are the keys. This one is forward, that's back. Don't use that.
Okay.
That's bad.
Tim's trying to hide up back.
I have some copies of the presentation if you guys want to follow along and take notes.
Thank you.
And we brought some hard copies of the report as well. I owe a couple copies to Alicia from.
Tim, right behind you.
And then, I don't know if the selectmen wanted a copy.
Maybe we can keep a copy in the
Okay.
town administrator's office. If we all want it, we can grab it.
Yeah, exactly. Should we just get right into it?
I think so.
So I'm John Perry with Gale. I know most of you in the Alumni Field Project, which we were just over there before this at the JV soccer game. That was really, really cool. Yeah, I'm gonna go pop over after to see some of the varsity soccer game, I think, yeah.
Text me an update, would you?
Yeah. I'm here with Jeff Georges. He's our landscape architect. Jeff did a lot of the legwork on this master plan. And we know that we have about 30 minutes and it's a full agenda. So we're gonna get through this as fast as we can. We have a lot of information. So if I go over something quickly and you wanna hear more information on it, just shout out, just ask. Okay, so quick agenda. I'm going to tell you just a little bit about Gale. Most of you already know, but just for the record, we're going to talk about kind of the purpose of this study, what we really did here. We're going to go through some use data. We're going to talk about some programming and some planning that we did on some of the existing parcels and some of the parcels that are undeveloped. We'll talk about phasing, budgets, and maintenance, and some overall conclusions. So very quickly again, Gale Associates, we're engineers, we're architects, landscape architects, been in business for 52 years, a little bit more than that, I guess. We do synthetic turf fields, grass fields, tracks, tennis courts, and master plans. And this assignment for the recreation master plan is a very typical assignment for us. We've done probably 80 or so of them for mostly municipalities in Massachusetts, and certainly New England. Typically, the goals are somewhat similar, and in this case, no difference. Typically, our process is to evaluate the physical condition of your existing facilities, which we did, to quantify all the uses on the existing facilities, which we did, and we'll talk a little bit more about that going forward. We met with some of the user groups, youth baseball, youth softball, soccer, lacrosse, all the constituents that use all of the facilities, to verify our use data and to kind of get their opinion and their kind of take on how the facility functions for them, what things that, from a physical standpoint, maybe we missed during our evaluation. If it was a dry day and we're out there, maybe they know something about drainage that we don't, that sort of thing. And then we take all that information and we provide planning services that produce new conceptual layouts, renovations to existing facilities. If more facilities, more fields are needed, we look at that. And then wrap that all together in a report, which we have here. And then in that report also has phasing strategy with cost estimates in there. So that's kind of the agenda. We're going to go through that same, we're going to step through that right here. So all the fields that we looked at, are listed here. All of the existing fields through town are basically 1 through 8 there. We looked at a couple of other parcels of land that are undeveloped that could potentially have new fields on them, one being Cricket Lane, the other being the Morgan property, and then we looked a little bit more briefly at the land behind the track at Russell Street School, and then there was some land near the high school entrance that ultimately was not really part of the process, but we did look at that up front. So step one was to do the actual field evaluation, and up there on the right is a typical scorecard sheet. We did that for every single field in town. So for example, here we have a site map for the high school, and there are 4 fields at the high school, so each field had a scorecard. We go through geometry, soil orientation, stain of turf, planarity of the surface, striping, fencing, irrigation, safety, whether it's runouts or obstructions, support equipment such as goals and benches, athletic lighting, site lighting, spectator seating, drainage, and ADA accessibility. And those are all the items that are listed on the left side of the page. Each of those is given a score, 1 being poor, 4 being excellent, and then you tally them up and you get the final grade in the top right corner there. In the bottom, as you can see a little bit there's some comments. So anything that we note specifically, for example, if their fencing is rusted and old and laying down, or there are issues with dugouts. Swampy was a somewhat common one as well. Those are listed there, and then we kind of regurgitate some of those back into the report for ease of finding that. We're not going to go through every single scorecard, but Jeff did the evaluations, and he was going to take you through, these are some photos here of some of the kind of existing conditions here. We were going to jump through each site quickly and just talk a little bit about each thing that we noted.
All right, real quickly, we're going to go through the sites that we studied. Whitcomb Field High School, Shaker Lane Middle School, Cooper, and Shattuck Field. And we're going to show you the scorecard number and what's our concerns about each one of them. We'll start with Whitcomb. It's a busy field, and the comment here on top is that it's overused, and because it's overused, the compaction on the lawn and some of those patches that you saw in the last photograph, the lawn is a lot of the lawn is patchy and in fair condition. It's thin, it's worn, again, because of its overuse. There's no walkway or ADA compliancy within the field. The perimeter fence is rusted and uneven. There's no formal walkways, as I said, and the spectator seating is lacking in these fields. It's more of a big open field with a lot of movable goals, and we're trying to get our sports in. So for the facility itself, those are what we look at when we look at it. The next one is the high school fields. There's 4 of them. 2 of them are more or less rectangular, multi-purpose rectangular, soccer, lacrosse, field hockey, and the other 2 share a field with baseball or softball. The scores are, as you can see, 2-7, 2-7, higher ground, and as you get down lower into the wetter areas, 2-5, 2-5.
Can I jump in right here just
Sure
real quickly?
thing.
Now, those scores were taken more recently since we've done some repairs to those fields, or were those taken?
I think we took them in June, so it's
They were
before.
done prior to the
Yeah.
field renovation.
Okay.
Monies that we-
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
Okay.
The biggest thing we saw here was mostly in the baseball and softball. It gets wetter as you kind of go south because all the water runs that way.
It does. Yep, it goes downhill.
Can you real quickly put those quantitative scores into a context for us? What does a 2.7 mean?
So one is poor, and then 4 is excellent. So these are kind of somewhere in the middle here. It's average, right? Again,
Sorry if you said that, I missed.
no, that's fine. And again, Jeff mentioned before, the reason 3 and 4 are just a little bit worse off than the other ones is mostly due to drainage. I don't want to steal your thunder here, but
Sure, no, go right ahead.
we found deficiencies with some of the dugouts. ADA was a real issue with all of these here. Probably a little bit less so with the rectangular fields because it's a little bit more on the parking lot grade. It's still not accessible, but it's a little bit easier to get there. Then as you go over to like softball, it's up on the hill. There's no way to get up there. And then per code, like the dugout areas and the coaches and the referee areas should be accessible. And there's none of that there, which is pretty typical for older vintage type fields.
Shaker Lane Fields, they are a busy field also. Because of their use, they also are worn a bit and in fair condition. Field scores are 2-2 for Cooper, 2-6 for the softball, and 2-7 for Shaker Field itself. We have non-compliant ADA issues on all of them. The drainage, there's issues coming down on both of the fields. In the back, Cooper, and again, a drainage swale coming back in the outfield of Field 3. There is no real current structural walkway system that we could use for accessibility. There's no real formal spectator seating in the areas. And it lacks support equipment for the sport. And the fencing's old, rusted, and some of it's damaged as well. All right. Middle school facility. Now, that's a beautiful field. It's in the 3s. It would be higher, but we got to find something wrong with it. But it's in really good shape. The only thing that we find is that some of the support equipment for it, whether it's an actual irrigation system as opposed to a cannon, or a storage facility, or a simple ADA compliancy, or maybe some fencing, it's just more ancillary things than anything else. The field has really repaired itself and come back nicely. Kerber Field is the same way. Beautiful field. It scores high. And it's just the facilities that we feel should be addressed, whether it's the ADA compliancy, sidewalks down the parking lot, at the entrance to the fence and to the concession stand, spectator seating, formalized spectator seating and sidewalks and walkways would also be a positive turn.
We heard that parking is an issue here as well on a busy Saturday morning. Parking along the roadway or along the parking entranceway can be kind of a safety hazard. It's tight. I mean, we looked at places where we could maybe try to add some parking in there. It's challenging. And I think also the town doesn't technically own it. The water and light department owns it. I don't know exactly how that works, but just something to note.
And I think the last here is Shattuck Field. It's a nice neighborhood field. It's got a nice feel to it. Real difficult to get down, though. The walkway system is tough, and so forth the ADA compliancy is. Seating in it, irrigation, it could use its own. A little bit of bumpy field grading could be improved. Some of the grass is old and worn. It could be replaced. Paved walkways, of course, and spectator seating would be, they have some there now, but some additional would be nice. So those are the existing town fields and what we found when we looked at it to score it up.
All right, so this is, and I know that it's hard to see on this, but this is our, and I brought some, if you're interested to look at the data. And I didn't want to get bogged down with the actual data, but kind of take you through the results more than anything, because we're a little short on time, but this is where the meat of the study really lies here. One of the first things we did besides the evaluations was we met with Park and Rec, we met with the athletic staff to get data for exactly how many uses are on each of the fields. So this chart here is along the left-hand column is every single event that could potentially take place on a field, and then along the top is the different venue. And what we do is we quantify each of the uses, and we define a use as a 90-minute scheduled event, whether it's, high school soccer, or it's gym class, it's ultimate frisbee, it could be, clubs in the summertime. Whatever it is, we try to capture every single thing on there, and we relate those back to the number of uses. Now, the second sheet I'll show you here is what we call the equivalent uses. So what we do, clearly, one use of, high school football is more detrimental than one use of little kid soccer. So what we do is we apply a use factor to that. And for example, we say that girls' high school soccer is a 1, as where high school football is a 2. And then we adjust accordingly for the rest of them as well. For example, find one that's a little bit less here. Youth soccer would be a 0.75. And we apply those numbers through the raw data, and then what we do is at the bottom there, we pop out a tabulation of each of the equivalent uses on each field. And as you see in some of these, some of them are green, some of them are yellow, and some of them are red. Based on our experience, a well-built, well-maintained natural grass field can't sustain much more than 250 uses a year, no matter what you do. Just gets overcompacted and overused. So everything in the green is a field that has less than 250 uses per year, and the yellow is 250 to 300, and the two red there are over 250. And the only current reds are alumni and the middle school field. There is one that's in yellow, which is field 1 at the high school. And even the green, there's a few that are approaching the 250. We have a 249, 230, 237. So those are kind of right up against where they should be. The one that's in red at alumni, it's in red because of the number, but synthetic turf can't handle more than a natural grass field.
So this did take into account alumni post-renovation.
Yeah, well, you just see that number and you say, okay,
It's a lot of use.
that's a lot of use, but it's appropriate. So what do we do from here? Well, there's fields that we need to take uses off of, one being obviously the middle school field, the high school field, and then some of these other ones here that are approaching the 250. We try to take those and redistribute them amongst the existing fields that either have less uses than they really could have to be efficient, or in this case, a lot of uses are actually going to alumni, just inherent with the schedule that is set, and that was, we reviewed that with the athletic director, and when we were coming up with our redistribution, which is the third sheet here. So for the most part, we didn't have to do a lot of redistribution. If you see a value that's 0 on that sheet, that's where a value came from and went somewhere else. And a lot of them went over to JET. We took a lot of the softball, some of the softball from high school even, and put them into JET, which ultimately could go back to high school, but we put them there because of the current drainage issues. We wanted to see what happened at JET if you put those uses over there while maybe some renovations were occurring at the high school. It's a brand new facility. We understand that at least some of those uses are going over there. And then you'll see that a lot of uses are going over to alumni, again, based on just the schedule. And that ultimate number at the bottom is 1,104 uses on alumni. Now, with synthetic turf, it can sustain that, but I would caution that usually we see the synthetic turf numbers in like the 700 to 800 range, and that's scheduling it pretty tight. It could start to, if you keep sustaining 1,100 uses on there, cause premature wear towards the end of the life on there. You might want to take a look at possibly redistributing some numbers back, and we'll get into that with our proposed development plans as well. But just, I wanted to just note that that's a high number that we We don't typically see numbers in the 1100s, 1200s, just because it becomes a scheduling issue, really more than anything.
John, I should pause right there.
I just have one question, that the uses for lacrosse seem disproportionately high for alumni. And what is the wear factor for lacrosse versus some of the other sports? When we first started talking about the benefit of turf versus grass, lacrosse tore the hell out of grass.
Correct.
Does it do the same to turf? And if it does, with that disproportionate number of uses of lacrosse, does that accelerate the wear factor on the field?
So we assign a use of high school lacrosse as a 1.75 as opposed to a 1 for, something like girls soccer, So yes, it has a proportionally higher use rate than something else would. But generally, the most damaging thing to the turf field is not use. It's really UV rays from the sun. That's what's going to break down the fiber over time. Usually what we see from a lot of use, a lot of heavy use, is you could get some seaming, not seaming issues, but like the striping issues there that you might just need to have a little bit more maintenance on them if you're putting a lot of uses on them. But we've seen fields at college level where they put 1,000 uses out there, and it's the fiber is fine over the life of it. You just need to keep up a little bit more with the striping and
In front of the maintenance.
yeah, you have to keep in front of the maintenance.
So if I understand this correctly, like at Alumni Field, for example, high school football, you're saying that there will be, page 1 of this, there'll be 20 instances of high school football using Alumni Field. Or is
That's
that
right.
number itself the equivalent use?
That's the actual use. There'll be 20 games or practices out there.
Okay, then I don't understand how the total equivalent use is calculated. Because you flip to the next page, you've got an equivalent use factor of 2, you've got 40 uses for Alumni Field, you've got 96 for the Littleton High School, that factor of 2 doesn't appear to be applied. So how do these numbers come together?
You've got the raw data at 20 on alumni. You've got 48 at the high school.
I'm looking at the second page right now. So we've got Alumni Field, 40, Littleton High School, 96. Those add up to 136. We've got a use factor of 2, but we have a total equivalent uses of still just 136.
There's 3 sheets there. The raw data is 68.
20 times 2 is 40, and 48 times 2 is 96. I think that's what he's saying.
Okay.
I would argue that the number of 20 is inaccurate.
No, I'm just trying to understand the tabulation.
You go with it now?
No,
So
I'm
there's
fairly-
20, okay, so on page 1,
Okay.
Alumni Field, 20 footballs, 48 at the high school field, practice fields. You multiply that by the.
Okay, so the next page is carried through. Okay.
Look, I would suggest that we come back to this if you want. I didn't want to get too
fine.
bogged
No,
down.
I'm
Just
gonna-
because
No,
there's a lot
no,
else to
that's fine. I've got it now. I just wasn't
Yeah,
following.
if we could get into the meat and potatoes and
Yep.
recommendations. You good?
Yep.
Everybody good? All right.
So we looked at some development options, some renovation options. Then we'll have Jeff step through as well.
Development options go across the board. There are undeveloped pieces of land that we did some development options for, as well as some of the existing fields that are currently there. The development sites that we did that are new to the playing fields would be Shaker Lane, Morgan Property, Cricket Lane, and Cooper Farm Development. And so this is a plan for Shaker Lane. There was a voice for additional baseball in in the groupings and meetings that we had. So one of the options we thought here, as much as it's a baseball venue, would be to build out this venue and add a fourth field.
Let me interject with something that I meant to say at the end of the spreadsheets there before. So coming out of this data, we met with all the user groups, and the data doesn't necessarily show that additional fields are needed, just on a use basis. But we heard pretty clearly that we would be playing a lot more, we'd have more teams if we had more space. So the data that we're presenting is only what's actually currently happening, not what the town wants to have happen.
Or, I'll use baseball as an example, because of my experience on the board. If there were more fields available, then teams would get more than an hour and a half a week to practice.
Absolutely, right. And then we heard issues with, there's no opportunity to have makeup games, because if it rains, you can't have a makeup game because the whole schedule is shot, because now you're pushing someone else off the field the next day. And we also heard, we're a little bit constrained with time because we don't want to have our kids out there at 10 o'clock at night. So some of the data, you have to take it with a little bit of a grain of salt and also look at, the feedback that we got from all the user groups and the people who are actually using these and the demand for more sports, more fields, and more teams. So that's,
Need, want, wish?
Who, go ahead. User groups that you spoke with, could you give me a sense of who those user groups were? I mean, I don't necessarily need an exhaustive list, but.
we had youth baseball, soccer, football, lacrosse, field hockey, softball. I think everyone, right?
I mean, the reason I'm asking is that this is a nice layout for Shaker Lane. It doesn't seem to account for the fact that Shaker Lane students themselves use this as something more than a baseball complex. And I'm concerned that if we didn't include Shaker Lane students and phys ed teachers there as part of our user group, then we're gonna miss a really important use of those fields.
Good point.
Good. Mr. Chairman.
So, and Chase and Mike and those guys were also, as far as their use of it, but I don't necessarily think that part was included, was the gym teachers and stuff like, because we did take into account, like, the middle school gym teacher uses that middle school field.
Right.
They were actually some of the first people on it. The other one piece of this is, Dan gave us, his dream big list of, how much he would like to see baseball grown, whereas I don't necessarily, as we went into this, everybody kind of stuck to what they're currently doing and didn't necessarily go that much above and beyond as much as Dan did for lacrosse, soccer, field hockey, and those programming as well. So, it's important to understand that, why you see this, it's, yes, baseball's here, we could change any of these fields in the future to the needs of the community, and, if one of these complexes or fields came to fruition, and really sat down and said to the youth sports organizations, what's really important here, 2 of those baseball fields could very easily become a multi-use soccer, lacrosse, everything field, which would also fit the needs of your question of the schools using it for a multi-use field for whatever their phys ed programs are doing.
Yeah, you can make one of them contiguous.
And let's,
Not build a 4th one and turn that into,
and this is just the first one that we're showing, so
No,
I
I
think if we
understand, but
step through and then go to
it
the.
brings into relief what groups were included and how the input was.
Yep, good comment.
Good point. Mr. Champion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. How does this stack up with other like-sized towns? I mean, it's my understanding that baseball is on the decline across America. I didn't think we were actually looking to grow baseball, but maybe I'm missing something.
We heard a demand for additional baseball and then also adult league. We hear that we want to add a fall adult league softball team. There's a need for an additional 70-foot diamond for that kind of middle-aged group of kids. So that's the feedback that we got.
Is that what you heard here, or what are you seeing in other towns?
Yes, here in town.
What are other like-sized towns doing? Are they looking at this in the same way?
Do you have data to support that answer, or do you okay if while you gather your thoughts, if I ask Mr. Shepard, he's the president of baseball and softball, if you have the input?
Sure, I mean, I would say, well, yes, it's true, we have seen a decline, not just in town, but across the country in baseball numbers over the last 5 years. We've actually done a lot over the last 2 to 3 years in particular to not just stem that trend, but reverse it. So we've seen actually a significant uptick over the last 2 years in both baseball and softball registrants. Even this year, we've added 2 additional programs, both a summer program and a fall program, requiring additional uses of the field. The information that I provided was pretty much to what you said. It's like, yeah, we have fields. The interesting part about baseball, though, is at different age groups, you have unique field requirements and sizing that we just can't offer, right? So there's one field that can be used for the majors, for instance. There's one field up in the high school that can be used for Babe Ruth. So yes, we have multiple fields in town, but they're not configured for multi-use. So if you have multiple teams, chances are, as we said, if there's a rainout, we had a pretty rainy season, they can't even play their games, right? So that's when I put this together, I said, you gotta factor in more than just the wear and tear on the field, because if there's just not enough time, hours in the day to use the fields, then yeah, the fields itself are getting damaged, but the kids can't play. So that's really kind of what, when I put my information together, is along those lines.
You, do you want? to
No,
add
that's,
to that, or
that's the
as
feedback
far as
that
the
we
national
got.
trend, or? Okay.
Well,
And I think a lot of the information that you see here is really directly from the feedback that we asked the town to give us.
From Littleton.
Yeah,
I'm not,
and it wasn't a week, it
Yeah.
was a month, and, we're looking for that feedback, because every town is different. It's amazing the difference. We were down in Falmouth last year, and where their emphasis is strictly soccer, strictly multipurpose. Baseball doesn't even exist down there, and yet up here, it's on a grow. I mean, the towns are different. That's why we ask for feedback, because it's the only way we're gonna know.
okay.
I guess generally, though, we have heard a lot of, hey, lacrosse is becoming way more popular, and that has been taking uses away from Little League, but in this case, we heard something a little different. Go on.
Oops, here we go. All right, Morgan Property is up next. Here, and I'm going to just have you look at the graphic here. Here was an opportunity to put baseball in all 3 different flavors, 60, 70, and 90-foot fields, as well as multipurpose rectangular fields, all on one campus. It had the room to put in a rec center, concession area, splash area, recreation outside, playground for multi-grade levels, parking, walkways that tied into paths that are existing in the town, shelters. I mean, here was more of a grand design so that we could fit a number of type of venues and facilities in one venue.
This design is based on what could potentially go in there, based on the topography and the perk and, all the engineering stuff.
There's been no engineering done, per se, but this is,
Just on walking the
Yeah,
the property.
two-dimensional layout, yeah.
exactly, and then, we didn't do grading really for this, but, so there may be some retaining walls, there may be some cut and fills. I mean, at Shaker, that drops off way down the end there, so we added a big retaining wall to go in there. We didn't really talk about that, but these are layouts that,
Yeah, I don't think we need that level of detail. I just wanted to make sure that, this looks awesome.
but we're,
Yeah, yeah.
we're considering it, it's
Is it
a
real?
possibility, and then, and again, I mean, this is kind of wish list stuff. It's what can go here. So whether or not, maybe the town decides to start chipping away at a project like this, and maybe you don't build the whole thing at once, but maybe you say, all right, well, if we do one of these, baseball fields, one of the soccer fields, and that's gonna satisfy us for the next couple of years, and maybe we kind of build out something like that, but we'll get into that with the phasing.
Yeah.
Phased, okay. So you good with Morgan?
Morgan, yeah.
I'm not sure we need to even look at Cricket Lane, because I'm under the understanding it's under agreement. So
Okay.
I think it's off the table.
Okay.
Just to let you know that we had asked, and we knew that property was available, not available, but might be available, and if it was purchased by the town, what could we put there? That's why it's on there. It's not that we knew we were getting it or anything like that. We just asked if the possibility.
Yeah, I mean, I love that forward thinking and, the possibility of acquiring a piece of property, but I would have rather seen the Russell Street, the swath of land that we have on Russell Street.
Correct.
Instead of Cricket Lane, because we own it.
Right.
All right, so big X through the cricket lane project. Helps us almost stay on schedule, too.
And the last one is the Cooper Farm development on Great Road. This one really was more or less handed to us. There's a development there, mixed-use development, and 3 of the parcels that are of green space. One of them was designated for recreation, the other 2 for agriculture and open space. So this layout was more or less handed to us, a multipurpose rectangular field and a parking area. So we included here as one of the development options, just for the point of interest.
I appreciate that.
So.
Show me the money.
Yeah, so the cost estimates, and again, just kind of a disclaimer, again, we haven't done any engineering, we haven't done any survey, we haven't done any real design, but this is, based on the layouts and based on our experience, order of magnitude, kind of throwing everything in the kitchen sink in there. And it does include, an 8% for soft costs, engineering, et cetera. It includes a 20% contingency at this point, which is heavy, but again, nothing has been designed yet.
Was I missed the war? 20% contingency, Steve.
And then it includes a 10% for just general contractor conditions. So there's a lot of money in there that's really not part of the subtotal, but again, it's good to try to look at everything holistically. And we just did some line items here. And we did takeoffs of quantities where we could. We tried to get fairly accurate, cut and fills on some of these things, retaining walls, at least to get close. So we've got Shaker Lane, the redevelopment of the 4 fields, like we showed you before, all in around $4.8 million. The Morgan property, including the splash parks and the playgrounds and the walking trails and the parking and all that good stuff, was right around 6.6. We did look at the land near behind the track there. We looked at doing a javelin throw there, but ultimately we didn't include that. But we have it in the cost estimate. It was around $100,000. Cricket Lane we'll skip over. Cooper Farm, around 1.1 million for the layout we showed you. And then we have one for Whitcomb Field that we're going to get to in a minute as part of the phasing that we estimate around 1.8. Kerper Street, Kerper Development, we were asked to look at what would it cost to add lights, to add grandstands, and do some parking improvements there. So it's right around $2 million.
That was the turf field, too.
Oh, and including turf there. Yep, synthetic turf. The ones that are in the orange there are the more renovations and improvements rather than redevelopments. So improving all of the high school fields, $960,000, give or take. The Shattuck Street baseball field, doing new, improving the outfield, doing irrigation, some accessibility improvements, $386,000. And then if the Shaker Lane redevelopment didn't go forward and you wanted to do some improvements there instead, we've got some line items there at around $966,000.
On the Shattuck renovations out back here, very short porch from left field.
Yes.
Did that factor in at all in the renovations or no?
We didn't go farther into the
actions.
woods.
Okay.
We left it at B, 150 feet down.
These are in today's dollars, if we constructed it this
Yes,
year?
yes.
Canadian.
What's the exchange rate? Is that better?
So phasing, and then we're going to talk about maintenance, and then I think that we're going to wrap it up. So we'll try to blow through this. I know you guys have a lot to talk about. So phase 1 is done. We considered that to be the alumni and jet field, which is going to help out a lot with all the uses in town. Phase 2 would be either the Morgan property or Shaker Lane. I would recommend that the Morgan property strategy is the better of the two, just because it has multi-sized fields for baseball, and it has rectangular fields for soccer, lacrosse, field hockey, walking trails, etc. It's just kind of a more holistic approach. Phase 3 would be improvements at Whitcomb Field, which would be to deconflict baseball in the rectangular field and the outfield. Right now, they're just kind of all over each other. There's a very poor definition of space. We think that we could actually shift the baseball diamond down to the south and actually have an outfield fence for that, or not if you want to keep it shared. and then have a smaller but still full-size multi-purpose field in the outfield. And we put that as phase 3 rather than phase 2, because if you do new fields as phase 2, say you do at least a portion of the Morgan property, gives you an opportunity to do phase 3, because you're going to need to displace the users on Whitcomb while you're doing these projects. So you give them a place to go while you're doing these improvements. Phase 4 would be improvements at the high school. Phase 5 would be improvements at Shaker Lane, assuming that the redevelopment didn't go forward here. So kind of, again, phase 2 is an either or. And then phase 6 would not be that. And then phase 7, which I guess would be phase 6 now, would be improvements at Shattuck Street. And then Jeff will get through this very quickly.
The maintenance budget for the different fields is a four-step process, and I'll run through it quickly for you. The first step in developing a maintenance budget is to list out all of the different tasks that would be involved in maintaining a high-quality field. And you see them here, everything from inspection, spring inspection, soil sampling, to top dress and oversee, to lime, to fertilize, to all the pieces, and they're coded here with letters S-I, M-S, M-B. And the codes follow each one of these maintenance tasks to a calendar. All right, the calendar is 12 months of the year where we've put in what we would do in order to maintain the field. And this matrix was passed on to the town for them to review, so everybody understanding where we're putting tasks to be done, if they want to extend this or remove this or whatever. So each task is now a week, given a week in the year, the 52 weeks in the year. And they're laid out so we know just what a maintenance crew can do, or should be doing at any particular time during the year. After we have the tasks in order, then we look at the tasks themselves, and these tasks are broken down: labor, equipment, and materials. And these are actually gained through our trade experience and best management practices for what it would cost for a crew to go out and mow, let's say, a 100,000 square foot multipurpose field. It would cost X amount of dollars. Here's a fertilizing.
Quantified.
Yep.
Yeah. Here's a fertilizing a spreadsheet that just shows what it would cost to fertilize a field of any sort here. So now that we have the price tag per task and a calendar year telling us where to go, okay, the next phase is adding them up. So you'll see here on the maintenance cost summary the number of tasks per year that each one of those events occur. And you start at the top: equipment maintenance, inventory, training, 6 times a year, inspection, soil sampling 13 times a year, and the whole list just goes all the way down. And then you multiply that by the dollar figure per task, and you get the cost per task, and then, of course, you total them by simply multiplying it. Total
Sorry, this example isn't, this is for demonstration purposes, this is not one of our facilities.
This is all of your facilities.
All of the facilities.
Yep.
As is, not allowed to add
Okay.
anything else.
Thank you.
Right.
And this is not obviously what you're spending. It's, in an ideal world, money's not an issue, what you should be spending.
Is there any money in there for alumni?
Yes, there is.
Yes.
Yeah, you'll see synthetic turf, field maintenance up on maybe the fourth or fifth.
Yeah, all these are little snippets of a larger spreadsheet.
Not much there,
too,
though. Number 3 there, yeah, not much there.
but- Yep.
$500 a year, that's a lot of money.
Well, yeah, that doesn't quite add up exactly to the next thing, but go ahead.
Teach us how to do that. Teach us how to maintain that for $465 per year.
All right.
Yeah, well, I'll get to that after this, so that.
All right, so the maintenance summary also tracks man hours.
Let's go to the summary.
Go to the summary. All righty.
Thank you.
Go to the summary. Here's the summary here.
Yes.
Okay, great. This shows the amount of man hours for supervisor as well as worker that's required to do that maintenance that you saw. And it tells you the month that they are acquitted for. And these are the tasks that they'll be doing on the right-hand side. You can see there's a fluctuation in the spring. It gets a little busy, flattens off in the summer months, and then in late summer, early fall, the amount of work picks up once the gas drops off at the end of the.
Your next slide, okay, this one here answers the alumni budget question.
So, yeah, so that tally that we had there, it doesn't quite add up to what the real number probably is. So in our experience, it's two options for synthetic turf. You either do it yourself in-house or you hire it out. And if you do it yourself, it's probably about $1,600 a year.
Okay.
If you hire it out, it's about $1,850 per occurrence, and usually they'll come twice a year. You can do more, or you can do less.
$4,000 a year.
Yeah, $4,000 a year if you hire it.
Contracted.
Yep. One thing we have in our report is an inclement draft example inclement weather policy. So no matter how well you maintain the fields, if you spend $1 million maintaining them a year, if you have one use in a really wet condition,
You're ripping up the roots.
you're ripping up the root zone, and it's gonna bring you back to square one. So just overall conclusions, the use data that we found didn't quite show that you need more fields, but the demand that we heard shows that you do. And also the rest period, the ability to make up game on a rain event, the ability to add more teams, all leads to more field space being, practical in our opinion. And then also, I guess the other one here is maintenance. If you go forward with improvements that we've outlined tonight, you're going to have to do something with the maintenance regimen. So, with that, questions, comments?
All right, so as far as that maintenance regimen is concerned, I think that's something that we're in the process of addressing, and Mr. Stoddard is in the back there, so we're looking at putting budget line item specific so that you, Chris, you and your folks know what you need to maintain the fields that we have, and, some of the schedules and everything that we had here, and I know that you do that on your own, come to a number a little bit differently, but that's gonna help us in the budget process, and I think that, we need to make sure that we're investing in what we've got and letting it rest and making good decisions that way. I'll open it up to the board. Does anybody have any questions of folks from Gale? Jeff or John?
I just think this is a great guideline to go by, whether we ever do some of it or not, but at least gives us something to take a look at what we possibly could do in the future. So it's like a
Master plan.
master plan, what we need, and I thank you for your efforts in that.
Is it your opinion that the most feasible property is the Morgan property? Is that reasonably accurate? I mean, I have a hard time envisioning us pursuing one, major complex in a single fell swoop. So getting your sense of, now, if we did build out the Morgan property in phases, how would you envision that coming together? Would you focus on one multi-purpose field and one baseball field and then sort of build out from there? Would you build out from the back forward?
Infrastructure first.
What would the phases
Right.
look
I
like?
think this is a perfect opportunity for a phased project. I mean, the Shaker Lane, it's an active school. Getting down in there is going to be tough. That's something you'd want to do all at once. This, no one's using it now. You can kind of build this out to your desire, to your budgetary constraints or timing, and whether you build, it's going to depend on. It's going to depend on the real kind of future demand for fields. But what we heard was soccer, lacrosse are in need of fields. Baseball is in need of at least another 70-foot diamond, probably another 90-foot diamond. So if you were going to go with something like that, I'd probably say you want to build probably one rectangular field, one 70-foot field. Is that our time? And then you can kind of work from your way out, you know what I mean? You obviously want to get the road in there, get some parking in there, but, we can work on phasing that strategy through.
I think that would be, if we were to go that way and ask the town for money, I think we have to make sure that we bring in all of the infrastructure at one fell swoop, and then whether we, put some other facility up there that's not, maybe it's not a recreation facility, maybe it's a senior center, or maybe it's aquatic center.
So that's one thing, it definitely, if it was that kind of center, it would be, multi-use and multi-generational when, looking at that, and that's, connects to the walking trails, connects to everything else, so it affords everybody of all ages, the opportunity to use the property.
At $9.6 million.
It was 6.6.
Today's dollars. That was my inflation multiplier.
Asking if they had envisioned building this 3 or 4 years from now. In terms of latent demand, because it seems like latent demand is what is driving this. In terms of genuine need, we can rearrange our usage.
Based
What
on
is
the
your-
data.
What was that?
Based on the data.
Based on the needs assessment that the town commission. Where is the latent demand strongest after baseball and softball? If I understand that correctly, the latent demand is strongest with baseball and softball.
That's
Is that accurate?
that's the loudest demand that we heard.
And if I could just, I'm sorry to interrupt, but Chase, from what I'm hearing now, there are people that didn't speak up loud enough, or other information that we didn't get.
I mean, with all due respect, it's your job to make sure to get the feedback, not for people to stand up and start screaming and yelling. So,
Well, we asked for it, so what I'm saying is, if you wanted to plan it now, we may want to ask more and get more information before we say soccer was the next in line. Maybe we need to hear that again, and have people flush out and give us more information before we go back and say which is our best shot.
what pieces of information would be most helpful to you to make that type of determination?
The same type of thing that I think Dan did, just kind of forensic, what's our needs for, whether it be soccer, lacrosse, any of the fields. Let's go in for a second dip of information, a second time to give us something we need.
So is that something you're prepared to do under this study, is do that second dip?
If we got some more data and kind of hard numbers, we could incorporate that with the study. What we got when we met was more verbal, kind of, desire for more fields. It was we need more fields because of this and that, and we didn't get a lot of hard data on, trends, going forward. So that would be helpful if we could get it. And I don't know that we can get anything that's very definitive, but if that existed, then yes.
What kind of hard data would be useful to you to actually measure latent demand?
It would be how many times a year are teams not able to play, that they really do want to play? How many more teams do they think they could really field? That sort of thing.
Okay. Maybe interested, certainly,
yeah.
in pursuing that to put some hard information.
Yeah,
into.
absolutely.
I agree, right, thank you. This is a great report, it's a little overwhelming, a lot to take in, but it's really interesting. I agree, I would like to see more hard data. I'd like to see the comparison between a need and a want before we move forward with anything. I think, as a small community, as we're realizing, everybody has a need, and not one need's more important than another necessarily, but we did just build a beautiful multi-purpose facility. So I appreciate the hard work that was put into this. I know that someone recommended this before we even voted on alumni, I believe. So now we know, based on what the information you've provided to us. One thing I wanted to ask, is there any sports that are played year-round? Is soccer a year-round sport?
Fall and spring.
Fall and spring? Okay, and that's the only one, correct?
Baseball
and softball are doing-
Summer and spring.
Fall, okay. All right, and then my other question had to do with the hard data, and that answered my question. So I think, like I said, this is good, this is helpful, it's a good starting point, but I think we have more work to do, so, thank
Also,
you.
keep in mind that when, go back 10 years, we didn't have youth lacrosse, we didn't have youth football. We've added both those sports, but we haven't added any fields. Everybody else is getting their space shrunk down tighter and tighter. Soccer, for example, a U18 team, they get a half a field practice one night and a third of field practice the other night, because that's all the space they have.
Right.
So this data that you're looking for, like need versus want, it's we want because there's a need.
Right.
So how do you
And
quantify that?
And that's precisely the kind of data that I'd be really interested in understanding, to get to Cindy's point of differentiating between a need and a want. Because I'm gonna guess somewhere at the bottom of $22 million worth of fields, that's not all need. But I absolutely understand that there are genuine needs in there, and it's where
Right.
does the data show that the needs end and the wants begin? And if we really, if we're cramming
I just,
a 20-person team on a third of the field, that's a challenge.
Mr. Chair, I had one more question
sure.
quickly. I know we just did some work up at the high school fields, maybe Chris can answer this question. How does what we already have done compare to what was reported in this report? What improvements have been made compared to what's in the report?
Well, we haven't addressed any of the drainage issues up there, nor ADA. Really, we've only done turf maintenance.
Okay. Okay, all right, thank you.
One other thing, when early on, we talked about the middle school having a rating of 3.5, that field right next to the middle school, but that's been vacant for a year, because we put money into it. So no one's been on it for a year, and that's why it's in the shape it's in.
Sure.
We go back to regular use, it's not in that shape anymore.
Right.
Well, prior to it getting renovated, it wasn't necessarily built to be
Correct.
an athletic field, but to your point, we added some uses, and it was used for lacrosse, it was used for soccer, it was used for football practice, it was used for just about anything. Baseball, softball, jamboree. That killed. All right, so to Joe's point, I think it's good to have this information, just like the master plan, for the townwide master plan. We've talked about doing a master plan for the common, and it's nice to have these chapters within our book.
Right.
To be able to go to and say, okay, we've addressed that, let's go back and look at it. But I think if you're willing to take another dip and try to get some of the information that Chase is talking about, and Gary and Tony Prue and Dan and these folks are all willing to come forward with, especially now that there's a little bit more context, this might help the conversation a little bit more. I think that if you can do that and just kind of tighten this up a little bit, I think it'll be a much better tool for us.
Right.
As well as for the community at large. Erica?
If we're taking a second look, can we look at trends and, how many kids were in soccer 10 years ago? How many kids are in soccer now? What is the population of our town now versus 10 years ago? So that, again, we have actual data to support some of that.
Yeah, I think that's incumbent upon each of the organizations, and maybe Park and Rec can help with that.
Yeah,
Because
so
some of
one
that
thing-
data is available. That's Erica Podgorny, by the way, for folks at home from Fox Lane.
One thing that we've been talking about doing, Chuck, with the youth sports in general is putting together a youth sports council. What that looks like, we don't know yet. We've actually gotten some suggestions and drafts of what that would be from towns who have had a very successful one. So we're kind of working on putting that together, at which point that would be a chance for everybody to come together on a monthly, quarterly basis to sit down and discuss things like this and have, really in-depth conversations where we're going to talk about this month. Please bring all your data and we can turn that stuff over. And, it gets everybody in the same room to really, truly talk about, Dan can say, hey, I need this many uses, and, Gary or Tommy or JR can, bring that all to the table, and they can really hash it out and come up with those numbers that Chase is looking for.
In conjunction with Chris.
Yeah, exactly. And Mike and everybody else
Yeah,
who has a
absolutely,
need for it.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That doesn't even address any issues that could be more sports coming on board, like there's been talk for a few years about adding field hockey league.
At the youth level.
At the youth level. And now rugby is a growing sport. If they want to come to town, where are they going to play?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so if we're presented with some of that data, if it's, just give us some numbers, we have X amount of rugby players or teams, or what the game schedule would look like, practice schedule would look like, we'll crunch that data.
And I think there is a good suggestion to look at the historic data, because I would be very interested to know if we had a plateau at some point, and we can identify that we hit that plateau not because we've maximized interest, but because we've maximized capacity. That kind of historic
Right.
information can be very useful.
Very much appreciate you guys coming out.
Thank you very much.
Presentation.
Thank
I
you.
think it's a good conversation starter, and I think we just keep the conversation going.
Sorry, we went a little long.
Yeah, I'll get it out of you. Thank you, John.
Appreciate it a lot.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Oh, it's,
So as some shuffling happens here in the room, I will ask that the folks, what do we have next? We have sewer, common sewer? Yep. Littleton Common Sewer update. Next, we got some folks from Weston and Sampson. I think Mr. Stoddard is here. Go ahead. So this is a project update from Weston and Sampson along with our, pardon me? Apparently a request as well.
So, as you know, it's been a few months since we've come before the board.
Last confession.
We've made a lot of progress, I think, in the last few months. Weston Sampson's going to give you an update of where we stand and kind of what the next steps we're looking to do over the next, hopefully, few weeks.
Yeah, so I'm Corey Rapucci with Weston and Sampson. I have Andy Walker here. He's one of our hydrogeologists who will kind of take you into more depth about the desktop study that we've done. So basically, we looked at the entire town in terms of areas that could be suitable for groundwater disposal from the wastewater treatment facility that would be necessary as part of the Smart Sewer project. It was an in-depth evaluation looking at 12 different criteria, and we've eventually shortlisted the sites. And then we're here to talk about next steps with that process. Also have some general stuff at the tail end that we can talk about, the conceptual planning area relative to our shortlisted site and the one that has come to the top. And then also talk about a potential grant opportunity that we would envision pursuing as part of the project. So with that, I'll turn it over to Andy.
Thanks, Corey. All right, great. Yeah, my name is Andy Walker. I'm a hydrologist at Weston and Sampson. I spearheaded this screening process. As Corey said, we looked at 12 different screening criteria. There's a summary table of them there. The first bunch are some hydrogeologic characteristics, and in our experience, those form the majority of what goes into finding a good site. We looked at things like a drainage class, which is how well the top few feet of soil can pass water, or infiltrate water rather. Transmissivity, that speaks to the underlying aquifer, how well the underlying aquifer can move water away from a discharge site. We also looked at things like depth to groundwater, depth to refusal. And we also looked at something called groundwater depletion. Mass DEP has given every subbasin in the state a score for how overtapped it is, and so the idea is that if you put water back into an overtapped basin, it can help you out in the WMA process down the line. We looked at other categories as well. We looked at land use, commercial industrial versus undeveloped barren land. We also looked at ownership, obviously. Town-owned land is often preferential to privately owned land. And we also looked at energy criteria. The discharge site, the further away it is and the higher above the source of the effluent, the more long-term costs you have. So we tried to factor that in as well. And finally, we looked at several regulatory criteria. In general, you want to keep these discharge sites away from your water supply, your wellhead protection areas, and away from wetlands and contaminated sites as well. You can see that each of these 12 criteria was assigned a weight. Not all of these criteria are created equal. Like I said, we favor the hydrogeologic ones a little bit more heavily, and you can see that in the weighting. And that speaks to. I know that a townwide screening was conducted in 2012 by the Charles River Watershed Association. Our approach followed the same general pattern as that analysis, with a few key differences. Number one is some of that data that was used back in 2012 is 5, 6, even 10 years old. So we're taking advantage of higher quality and higher quantity data. As I said, we focus more on hydrogeologic criteria. We feel that's a little bit more important and perhaps wasn't given enough attention in the past. And we also weighted each of those 12 criteria individually. In the past, they were all kind of lumped together. You know, all the hydrogeo were given one weight, all the land use criteria were given another. I think our approach is just a little bit more detailed and takes advantage of better data. This is an example of one of the 12 criteria. This is aquifer transmissivity. You can see that the entire town was graded on a scale of 1 through 5. 1 is shown in red, and that's a low score. 5 is a high score, that's shown in green. Yellow, obviously, somewhere in between. And this was done for each of the 12 criteria. And they were overlaid one on top of the other. And we ended up with more than 28,000 polygons of unique combinations of each of those 12 scores. You can see the project area there in the dark polygons. And each of those 28,000 individual polygons was assigned a total score based on each of the 12 individual scores and each of the 12 weighting factors. So theoretically, we could have had scores as low as 0 or as high as 5. But in practice, the scores range from about 1 to 3 3/4. We focused in on sites that had a score of 3 or greater. These are sort of the cream of the crop, the top tier. There were 281 of those. Following Mass DEP guidance on septic and discharge sites like this, they recommend at least a 25-foot buffer back from property boundaries. So we removed portions of these 281 sites that were within 25 feet of a property boundary. Also, in our professional experience, sites that are smaller than half an acre are a bit of a non-starter. There's just not enough real estate to put all the facilities you need and have proper access. So by sort of culling the 281 sites based on those criteria, we ended up with 581 potential sites. I'm sorry, 41 potential sites. It's a little hard to see on here, but this is the color flood that you see there, green to red, is the total scores town-wide. Again, green is good. Green are areas greater than 3. Red are scores lower than 1.5. And you can see in blue polygons, they're all in the top, say, 1/3 in that northwest corner of town. Those are the 41 sites. Now, we kind of zoomed in on each of these 41 sites individually on a case-by-case basis. The preliminary screening was great for identifying sort of broad areas of town that are useful, but we focused on each of these 41 sites individually and sort of did a secondary screening, weeding sites out that perhaps had some deal-breaker scenarios. Nobody wants to tear down a private home to put a discharge site, so we weeded out any parcels or any sites that were over a residential parcel. We weeded out sites that were on conservation land. And we also, some of these sites are located in commercial industrial areas, which are generally consistent with this type of project. But they were overlaid on top of buildings. Nobody wants to tear down a commercial industrial facility. So in doing so, we narrowed down from 41 sites to 7. And it looks like this. You can see the blue polygons there are the shortlisted sites. There are 7 of them. Does this have a laser pointer?
It does, but you can't do it on that screen.
Okay. Well then, I'll just run through them very quickly. At the very north there on the map, there's 2 sites. One of them is a undeveloped forested area sandwiched between a power line right-of-way and a residential area. To the west of it, to the left of it, there's a small parcel that's or a small piece of a parcel. It's at the back of the Agway site.
That's the number 14.
Yes, I believe it is. I will say that's our least favorite of our 7 shortlisted.
I can do it. This is what you were doing.
Oh, perfect.
Okay.
Yeah. So on the right is the undeveloped forested area between a power line cut and residence, and the smaller one is the back corner of the Agway parcel, which I was saying is definitely the bottom of our short list. It's separated from access to the parcel by a stream, so it wasn't a deal breaker, but it's not great. Moving sort of counterclockwise, there's a large squarish shaped blue polygon there. I believe that's 8 or 9.
Nine.
9, is it?
Oops, sorry, that was me.
That's okay. That's an agricultural field. Circling more counterclockwise, there's 3 funny shaped pieces of parcels down in the gravel pit there. We kind of lumped them all together into a single site. 2 of them at least have some decent land between them, even if it's not doesn't have a score of greater than 3.
Zoom in.
All right. So if you want to scroll down a little bit. Yeah. Now we're starting to get to some of our favorite sites here. So you can see 21, 22, 25, and 29 are all lumped together. Those are technically 4 separate sites, but they're all on the same. They're all on town-owned land on adjacent parcels, so they sort of form a contiguous area of good potential.
That's actually our building.
Yeah.
The Corporate or Kerper and Littleton Light and Water.
Yep.
That's, to give you a frame of reference, that's our property.
Thank you. So that's our second favorite shortlisted site, and I'll circle back to that in a few minutes. There's also just south of that, Polygon 28. It's long and narrow. Yep, right there. You got it. That's the sort of undeveloped woods behind the back parking lot of the adjacent commercial strip mall there. And Site 20 is the athletic fields behind the high school. This is our favorite site, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But you can see it's a little bit oddly shaped, but the area adjacent to it is a lighter green, and it's very close to being a score of 3 or higher. So kind of together, that makes up a very nice site.
That was like a 2.94
Exactly.
versus a 3.
Exactly.
So it's a very good area altogether.
Want to go to the next slide now?
Thank you. So the high school is our favorite site. Just talk briefly about pros and cons. The biggest pro is that it's already proven. There's already a groundwater discharge facility on site. Beneath some of the athletic fields, probably many people in this room have been there many times and may not even know that the facility's there. It's a town-owned parcel, and it scored very well on hydrogeologic criteria, which is a huge plus for it. There's also no wellhead protection areas overlaying it. There's no contaminated sites nearby. There's no wetlands. The cons are that it's only the mapped blue polygon is only 3.8 acres, but as I was saying, there's another 20-plus acres adjacent to that also scored very well, just under 3.0. This site did score poorly on the depth of groundwater, which is generally a little bit of a red flag. In this case, I think there's a lack of data very close to this site that kind of skewed that. And again, there's already a groundwater discharge site on here, groundwater discharge facility on the site, which sort of speaks to maybe that's not quite accurate.
How is it that we have a data gap there if we already have a discharge facility there?
Yeah, so this, we're screening town-wide, so we're using a lot of GIS databases.
Okay.
So things like test pitting that have been done on a project-by-project basis don't filter back to the state.
Okay. Yep.
And
so you didn't go down to that level of detail, even though we know that there's a...
Correct,
Okay.
correct, but that's absolutely a next step.
Yep.
Can I interrupt you again and ask
Absolutely.
one other question? You said the site's only 3.8 acres, but a lot of the other possible parcels you identified seem to be roughly on that same size.
That's true.
What would be an ideal or a minimum footprint that we would need to...
So a half acre is the bare minimum.
Okay.
That's why we weeded out those. And it depends, part of the concept of this project is potentially phasing in. Maybe a single discharge site isn't necessary, maybe it's multiple discharge sites, so it's a little bit of a loaded...
That's not to say that the half acre would get the ultimate design flow. It would just be a portion, and then additional fields would be constructed following once you got to your, once you were expanding the system. So.
Okay, so what, and maybe it's early in the analysis, what would be the true minimum size that we would want for
I think we looked at, it was the half acre lot, we figured we could get somewhere around 50,000 gallons per day, so would be looking at, maybe two and a half, yeah.
Okay.
If you were to use the athletic fields, just for what we're proposing in the common, would you only be using part of the land there, or could you expand as it went on? I guess I'm asking, how much more could we do in town if it came to that? Could we put it on that same property?
Well, we looked, I walked the site with Chris and Kevin and Kent the other day, and we were able to find some plans of the field and look at the layout. And given that it was designed for 36,000 gallons per day, just expanding that, it looked like we would probably only need to encroach on that existing field and one adjacent field potentially. So it wouldn't be, spread out over the entire surface.
Currently, they only use approximately the end zone of the practice football field up to, I would say, the 20-yard line of the practice football, that's all.
That's all?
Yeah, so theoretically, we would use approximately the rest of the practice football field and a portion of call it the soccer field next to it. So you still would have a lacrosse field, theoretically the baseball field, softball field.
You have expansion possibilities?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's, to be honest, that's one of the reasons this site floated to the top. It does have that extra real estate.
Sorry, also, the parking lot up there, from what I've been told, is also the same soil composition, so you would have theoretically that as well. Sorry.
Thank you. You can see the entire area is rated well. It's all green. You can't see it, but there's yellow and red outside the image. The second site that we liked is the kind of combination of I'll call it the municipal center, like Chris said, water department, electric department. There's a park there at the corner. Those four parcels together make a large chunk of land. It's all town-owned. There's a lot to like there. It scored very well on hydrogeologic criteria. Again, no wellhead protection areas or wetlands. You can see that there's kind of a circular boundary on the northwest corner there. That is 500 feet from a known contaminated site. Again, we didn't dig deeper into site specifics. We didn't pull the files on that. We don't know whether it's been resolved or whether it's ongoing or what the contaminant is or anything like that. But in general, there's a lot of pros for this site. Cons are, like I said, the contaminated site. One con is that it's multiple parcels, but in this case, they're all contiguous and owned by the town. So that kind of negates that. I will also say that half the site is impervious and developed, but most of that is underneath parking lots and driveways, which are not necessarily a problem. They can be consistent with this type of project. If I have a minute, I just wanted to mention 3 sites that had been previously identified by other studies. The IBM facility, the Point Shopping Center there, and the Cloverleaf at the 495 off-ramp there. Just looking at this map, you can see right away there are some green areas, especially the IBM facility and the Point Shopping Centers. In short, IBM and the Points are fair sites. Based on our analysis, they're fair sites. They're okay, but they're not great. They generally scored relatively poorly on hydrogeologic criteria. There are some things to like about them. They're close to the potential project area, so you've got reduced sort of capital costs there and reduced long-term pumping costs. But we're worried that you just won't be able to put enough water in the ground. Like I said, they're fair, not great. They scored in the mid-2s, in contrast to the shortlisted sites that scored anywhere from 3 to 3.5. We also looked at the Cloverleaf. I know that's been looked at in some detail before. We rated it pretty poorly, as low as 1.38, but generally between 1.5 and 2. It's small, relatively poor with regard to hydrogeo, and there's a portion of that area is within a wetland, and the entire thing is within one of your wellhead protection areas. So in our opinion, it's a bit of a non-starter. I'll just put this back up, but these are the shortlisted sites. I think that's as much detail as you probably want with our screening process. But we feel that we've identified 6 or 7 sites that show some real promise for you folks. I'll hand it back over to Corey for next steps.
So, that was very good.
I'm sorry, could I ask you one quick question before we move on to the next? Our scores ranged up to, what did you say, 3.74, something like that. Were there any variables that just didn't work across Littleton in general? site-wide issues that we're just gonna have to overcome because there's no good site that addresses
No.
transmissivity?
No, good question. No, and I mean, I added these just for this.
So it's like
These
a,
are the
it's like a TDF here.
these are the 12 individual maps. So you
Okay.
can see plenty of green, plenty of red. There are definitely some criteria that are more restrictive than others, but we scored the entire town based on these. So we're, the relative scores are important more than the absolute scores. But you can get a sense for there are some where most of the town is green, and there are some where most of the town is red.
Okay, no, that's very helpful. That's really what I needed to understand, is if there's some particular limiting factor.
Just put this back for you. Sorry, everybody.
So this is just kind of a general wrap-up slide, and obviously, like Andy had indicated, the high school site kind of popped to the top of the list in terms of where we think the most favorable option is. So in terms of next steps, I'd like to get Andy and one of his colleagues out to walk all of the shortlisted sites, then do a file review for the existing facility that you have at the high school, just in terms of what they did previously for borings and test pits and perk tests, that we can basically have that data and use it in addition to some data that we'd want to collect. We'd essentially want to go out and do a couple days worth of borings in that area. Looking at the field layout, we could probably do that with little impact to the field, doing the borings or the test pits in the areas between the actual playing surfaces and things like that. But in general, we'd want to basically get to a point where we're able to schedule work and move forward, because that site has come to the top.
Is timing, is it, you want to get out there within the next 2 weeks?
It's, well, not necessarily the next 2 weeks. I mean, it's part of our Phase 1 budget that we have money allocated for those tasks. We hire a subcontractor to come out and do the drilling, have a geologist on site to observe those conditions, and then look at scheduling test pits and things like that, and maybe even coordinating with Chris and his staff to see if they can do the excavations and things like that, unless, the town wanted us to completely subcontract everything.
Yeah, I think we would do the digging for you.
Okay.
So what we're asking is if the board's okay with us moving forward to doing some site inspections up at the high school.
The reason I asked the question about timing is, obviously, we're in September, right? So the fall athletics will be done just after Thanksgiving, beginning of December, maybe, if there's playoffs and that kind of thing.
We can do prayer tests after Thanksgiving. But we can do the site investigation after.
But if it's time sensitive, it needs to be done now, I would just ask that you coordinate.
Yeah, I guess physically,
You coordinate
we can
with-
do it. Whether or not Weston and Sampson wants to get that done ahead of time sooner, that's, I guess.
Obviously,
up to Weston and
I would ask that you coordinate with the schools and with the athletic director to, the least impact possible.
Yeah, we could basically form a work plan and get it reviewed by Chris and coordinate with the athletic director and see what the impact would be, and if that was favorable, or if you wanted to wait until after Thanksgiving. So I don't think that would be an issue. We'll obviously keep you guys in the loop, so.
That's my take on it. I don't know if there's any other questions, input, thoughts on that particular ask?
No.
I just want to make sure that it wouldn't hold you guys up from doing the other things in the interim.
Right.
I think just having we are trying to move pretty quickly, but having more data available in a timely manner, is beneficial, because this is one of the most important, hurdles that we need to get over in terms of finding a site that can discharge, the wastewater and assimilate it into the ground, so.
So I'm not sure that we need necessarily a motion. I think if we have a consensus, taking into consideration the
You have permission to ask the school department.
Yeah, the superintendent's here.
Make sure you communicate with us.
Yeah, we'll send a
plan. We'll send a plan.
That would be the only condition that I think we would put on, just make sure that you coordinate with the school department and the athletic director to minimize the impact on the students.
Yeah, and what we may find in the file review too is that, they may have done a whole suite of, borings and test pits and things like that, and obviously the ground, the soil conditions aren't gonna change within, the 15-year period, but, having, engineers like to have more data than.
Sure.
And have done that data research and drilling exercises themselves, but we may get to a point where we have enough data, I don't know, but.
Certainly, I would like to see you guys do the complete file, or let's say 80% of the file review and things before you start putting holes in the ground.
Absolutely,
you know,
yep.
So that we maximize the value of the holes that we
Right.
can put.
Yep.
The other thing, I spoke with Paul Glavy, who wasn't able to be here tonight because he's ill. Paul and I are
Champions.
sort of championing the sewer project. And one of the things that Paul and I had talked about just before this meeting was possibly finding a time to perhaps walk the site with you guys. I mean, that might be a good time to do that, and also begin some of the community engagement, and if that means reconstituting our sewer study committee and the folks that were involved in that, we would like to invite them out to perhaps walk the site as well and start to build that up, because as you can imagine, there's technical components of this, but
Right.
then there's also a big town-wide buy-in. We're talking about a lot of money and a lot of infrastructure.
Absolutely.
So beginning that process of not just doing the technical, but starting to move along.
Would you be okay with us doing the technical walk with our staff first and then scheduling something separately where,
Absolutely, I think that would be perfectly fine. The only, I don't want to waste your budget either.
Yeah.
So to the extent that we can minimize, your time coming back and forth.
yeah, we'll try and do everything as efficiently as possible, so.
So, I mean, that's the real important thing, I think, as far as both Paul and I are concerned, is starting to engage the public
Sure.
in this process. And particularly if we are going to go out and evaluate a particular site, shortly thereafter, we'd like to have you guys come back in. Either, doesn't necessarily have to be in front of us, but prepare something that we can make sure to use to keep the community
Sure.
up to date with what's going on.
Absolutely.
And what we find.
That's good.
Those are the big things,
Yep.
community involvement.
I would say, and Chris, you can kind of facilitate this through Chase and Paul, because they are the champions for that goal for this board. And, the more communication we have and sharing of information,
Absolutely.
the better off we'll all be, to your point. This is needing to be rolled out.
Right, I mean, we can design a beautiful system and then no one buys into it and we just wasted a lot of
Yeah.
time. So
Yeah.
And money,
make sure
yeah,
it's
absolutely.
well communicated.
And I guess the one last thing that I'd like to kind of end on is October 11th, there's a grant application deadline for the Water Infrastructure Assessment and Planning Grant. So we were thinking about submitting an application on behalf of the town of Littleton, basically to do an analysis of the existing asset that you have at the high school with the wastewater treatment facility. Whether this project goes or not, this is an asset that you have, and you'll get a benefit by doing a complete assessment. And it's nearing the end of its useful life, and chances are, based upon the timing of a project of this magnitude, 20 years will pass, and the useful life of a lot of that equipment there'll be some need for replacement, repair, and maintenance. So, and if the project doesn't move forward, ultimately you'd have this as a report to use in the future for capital planning needs. So we basically want to do an assessment of that facility, the pipelines that connect it, look at the records for effluent quality from the facility, and just do a general analysis of the asset that you have and come up with a recommended plan for improving it.
And the grant application is for existing infrastructure, not for new.
Correct.
So the existing facility would qualify for it. And there is the need to do some quality work on this. We've had issues with the collection system, and we want to make sure the facility works correctly. And
What's I'm sorry.
So Corey, you're planning on writing
Yeah.
with Chris, writing this grant application?
We discussed this already.
Yeah.
So the ask of us then is
It's authorization. to-
authorize.
Yep.
Just, allow Weston and Sampson to, thank you, submit it on our behalf.
And there is a 10% match, or a 25% match requirement of the town, so we'd be looking for $40,000 grant, so there would be a $10,000 kick-in that the town would have to do if we ended up getting that, and that could be in-kind services or money that we've already have budgeted for phase 2 of this project as well, so.
All right, so we can have that conversation. Any other questions?
One question.
We'll come back to that, but
Sure.
This grant application, Chris, in your opinion, is a risk reward, make it worth going forward? I mean, $40,000 grant, we're gonna spend $20,000 on consulting fees and have a, 10% chance of getting the grants, that wouldn't make sense going
Yeah,
forward.
no, I actually think it makes sense. If we
Okay.
do get the grant, it's something that you have to plan for anyways. Whether, like Corey said, whether or not we build this facility or not, at some point, the high school facility has to be addressed,
Mhm.
maintained, whatnot. This is gonna work towards that goal. So we kind of have a two birds, one stone kind of deal here. It's not a huge amount of money for them to prepare the grant.
Okay.
And like you said, we can, in-kind services, my time, Jim's time, we can match that, plus we already have it budgeted as part of the Phase 2 project. So it's really no more money out of the pocket of the town than we've already spent, or we're already going to spend.
That makes the decision, I think, a lot easier for us.
No, it does, but there's still an opportunity cost associated with that
Sure.
money, to the
course.
basis of the question. So, but as long as you've considered that,
Yeah.
in your opinion.
Like I said, we need to, and this works two ways, because we want to, if we do get forward with the project, we do want to do an assessment of the infrastructure that's there,
Yeah.
hopefully being able to utilize it.
Yeah.
Two, if we decide that that facility is the best location, to discharge the effluent. We want to be able to reuse the pipes, why put new ones in it?
Right.
Our stuff's still perfectly fine, so.
Awesome. So actually good?
All set.
Good? So I think it's consensus, right?
Yeah,
We're all good?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Go for it.
So,
Awesome.
You
Thank
need
you.
a
Thank you.
motion to-
need a motion for that?
We're all set.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Very much, appreciate your time, everyone. All right, next up is the Rotary Club of Littleton, proposed gazebo on the common. Mr. Ravello, did you hear about the Shaker Lane Scholastic Book Fair? Coming up October 3rd, they're looking for readers. Just throwing it out there for you.
Advances. Yep.
Make the bold assumption I know how to read.
You have some picture books. Where's Waldo?
Would like to take the opportunity, because backdrop, I provided one of the earlier briefings today, the athletic fields, and really congratulate you all, the folks who work so very hard to bring it about, and certainly the entire town, for Alumni Field, fabulous. The ribbon cutting Thursday night was superlative, and then the opening game, victory, everything about Friday night was wonderful. And coming here this evening, I stopped by the field at 7 o'clock, and they get ready for a soccer game. The field's getting used. So, well done, folks. Everybody in town, congratulations. Okay, I'm Paul Lavella. I am a Rotarian here in Littleton, as president of the club, and I'm joined with fellow Rotarians for our commitment to show you this evening our proposal to donate to the town of Littleton a gazebo to be placed on the common. So my purpose tonight specifically is to obtain your approval for us to continue the planning process and then leading on the road to construction so that we can have a gazebo in place by May of 2018, so roughly 9 months or so from now. Why a gazebo and why now? But before I get into that, I'd like to talk just a little bit about Rotary, if I may, for a moment. 1.2 million members across the world, 35,000 plus clubs. We're all over the place on the planet. In fact, it's such a prestigious organization that is the only NGO, non-governmental organization, with a seat at the UN. It helped found the UN, actually. So that's the history that this has. Well, there's many things we like to do, but one of them, right here locally, make positive, lasting change in communities at home. And we feel this proposal and this project supports that goal. And then growing local economies. I say, well, how would a gazebo in the common grow a local economy? Well, as we look at some of the things that we're going to want to do, we looked at the Master Plan Update Steering Committee. There was a commitment to common revitalization. That was number 2 out of 3 priorities that the Update Steering Committee offered to the town at town meeting that should be met. Of the 8 strategy areas, the Littleton Common was one of those. And the first 8 recommendations out of 67 to come out with a master plan update dealt with the common. Going back 4 years and some change, when we had the Tercentennial Committee and the Legacy Subcommittee, one of the options that was presented from that committee, one of the recommendations, a ribbon-cutting ceremony of sorts in the town common to mark a gift in a downtown Renaissance project. And that wasn't mere rhetoric. I was a member of that committee at the time, and that was something we very sincerely felt we could contribute to the town by doing that. And then as we worked through many of the options that we presented, certainly the common area highlighted as one of them. An aerial view of the common. So I'm going to direct your attention to the right first. And it's north up, so you can see the red arrow on the right-hand side of it. And if you're familiar enough, remember where Stevens Street is and where the intersection of 2A and King Street are. you can see the triangle in the center of the picture for the most part. Now I'll direct your attention to the left, and that's skewed about 45 degrees, but the approximate placement of the gazebo as proposed. What I'd like to really emphasize, it's not sacrosanct. That's a point of departure. We've been out, walked the site, and we're just offering that, as I say, this is a proposed area, and certainly it's one for discussion as we move forward. Roughly a 2,000 square foot area is what we're envisioning. The gazebo itself would be roughly, well, not roughly, it'd be 20 foot in diameter, octagonal, so 8 sides. I remember that from the orange show. So, plantings around it, and obviously that's an artist's conception right there that you see on the screen at this time. Sample gazebos. Roughly, this is the design we're looking at. We're looking at having 2 open sides and also a gateway or a rollway, if you will, a ramp up to it. And then the second one is where I show that picture of what one would look like. Now, the ramp we're proposing location be on the left side versus the right side of this, but it's just to give you an idea of some of the things that we're looking at. We've talked about stone blocks for the patio. Certainly, many things. Stamped concrete is an option, but this is the one we thought that would look most decorative, ease of maintenance and upkeep. And one of the benefits of having such a facility in the center of our town, it certainly provides a focal point for this town. It enhances the aesthetics of the common as they currently exist. It provides a venue for many different events, concerts, recitals, oratory, dance, various things we see. It's covered from inclement weather. And then, this is a commitment, I believe, that we're showing that we truly do want to revitalize the common. It's that step forward that we've been seeking. Now, we asked that the town approve us to dedicate this to a model Rotarian, Mr. Donald Sturts. Mr. Sturts passed away about 10 years ago. He was a club treasurer, club president, a teacher, a mentor, motivated throughout the community, a very humble and gracious man. And I threw in 2 50-cent words down there, urbane and urban. The thing is, they describe Don Sturts to the T. Sophisticated, gracious gentleman, a man of letters, a learned gentleman who wanted to increase not his own personal, only his own personal learning, but those around him. And he did rise people. He brought people up through education, and you'll see here in the next slide how he did some of that just within our youth, the community. Initiated Rotary's Dictionary Project. That's where we go to Russell Street School each year, and that's coming up here shortly within the month. And we'll go there, and all 3rd graders will receive a dictionary donated by Rotary. And it does make a lasting impact. For example, at 3rd Thursday this past year, the second one, we had 14, 15-year-old girls, 2 just come on up to our Rotary tent and go, "You gave us the dictionary." Okay, so these girls, young girls, are sophomores, juniors in high school, and I remember back to 3rd grade receiving that dictionary. And you, having children recently in 3rd grade, maybe not so recently for you, may remember that yourself. The Rotary Youth Leadership Award, Ryler, that's where we take 6 to 8 of our, between sophomore and junior year, and this is a program we worked on where we put them through an intensive leadership program, usually at one of the local colleges. It's on campus and it's a weekend deal, and it's very competitively selected for those young sophomores going into their junior year. And then the high school historical trust, scholarship trust and the Littleton Education Fund made Rotary very much a contributing factor of that and a continuing, sustaining partner there. Service community culture, participated extensively in growing the Historical Society, the Lyceum, the oldest operating lyceum we have in the United States, as you all know. The Thanksgiving breakfast, before the football game, on every Thanksgiving you mentioned waiting to drill, and be boring perhaps till after the Thanksgiving game. So hope to see you at breakfast, please, there. Holiday bazaar, as you know, and there's certainly the holiday tree lighting and many other events. Now, the service to improving health, you say, well, what do we have to do with Polio Plus and $450 million that Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has contributed to this? There's an acronym. When I joined Rotary a little over 10 years ago, it was PAIN. Pakistan, Afghanistan, India, Nigeria. It's PAN now. Pakistan, Afghanistan, Nigeria. The only countries on the planet where polio remains. We've been a very active force throughout the world to eradicate polio. Don was an instrumental person here in our town as we put that effort through internationally. Service on the international stage, worked with some young adults going to Egypt and worked with Egyptians on a young study program. And then we have this Banley Heifer exchange program where we send Rotarians to England for a 2-week period. And on the next year, Rotarians from England come to the United States. and stay in our houses for a couple, 3 days for 4 different or so couples over the period of time. So it really brings together a very good international flavor and a good fellowship. Then the intangibles. I sort of hit on this earlier, the lifelong learner, teacher, the epitome of tolerance. We're asking that we be allowed to put up a piece of granite, laser etched, 12 by 18 inches, dedicated to Don, and roughly the location where we'd be looking to put that. The financials. We proposed a budget about $55,000, $45,000 which will come from the Rotary itself, and then about $10,000 of donated labor and materials. The town of Littleton, please note the number, 0. This is us donating it to the town. We're Rotarians, we're Littletonians, some of us in the immediate surrounding towns also, but we want to do this for our town. It's power supply. Gentlemen, some of you may remember, Mr. Savastanos is helping us work with light and water to be able to get the power supply, and that's going to go in front of the commission here shortly for their approval. And then, the question that's invariably asked, and I think Chase, you may have asked about maintenance of the fields. One of the questions, as we were looking at that earlier today, we're committing ourselves, the Rotarians, to maintain the gazebo. Timeline. First approached this with the Littleton Country Gardens back in June. They were enthusiastic about it. I am going to see them again tomorrow morning with more details, because when I first broached it with them, it was very conceptual. I've been in front of the Highway Department. Chris has already left. Chris was here earlier.
The long ride.
They support. Permit Municipality Committee, I was there last week. They support, just doesn't show it on the board here. Tonight I'm here in front of you. As I said, tomorrow I'm going in front of the Country Gardeners once again. The Planning Board, early next month at their next meeting. And then what we're asking, though, is that so we can keep the ball rolling, is that we're able to achieve the final town approvals before Christmas time. Come January, get the building permits, order the kits and supplies. The groundbreaking mid-March, weather dependent, so we can have a ribbon cutting on 12 May. Circling back to that Tercentennial Legacy Subcommittee recommendation, this can be that gift as a downtown Renaissance project and really make our common distinctive from what we have today. So our recommendation to you, please, and our ask of you, is that you approve us to be able to continue down the road with the planning and with the eventual construction of a donated gazebo on the common. What will be your questions, folks?
All right, thank you very much. First of all, very generous. I love the fact that all the upfront questions are already answered. I mean, you've been around the block a couple times. You know what we're coming at you with. Something that I mentioned to you offline, as well as last week, we were talking about doing some things at one of our last meetings on the common. I think Mr. Zeldin was here, and one of the concerns I have is that there's a lot of things that are proposed, a lot of things that are going on, and folks are coming forward and looking to do different things on the common. And one of the reasons we did the master plan, as you showed us, there's the 8 of the first 67 recommendations from the master plan had to do with the common, or at least the common area, the common in and of itself. I feel pretty strongly that we need to slow down, take a good look, and maybe reestablish or reinvigorate the common
Littleton Common Committee.
revitalization.
Referencing.
Pardon me?
Yeah, maybe referencing the Littleton Common Committee.
Yeah, revitalization committee, was it? Was the common
It was
committee?
the
LCC. So I don't know if that's it, or some folks from master plan with Rotary, and maybe one of us, or I'm not sure exactly what the composition should be, but may or not fit into that timeline. I don't know if that is the case. I love the fact that you've got the timeline out there, so we can help, to hopefully get you there. But I do think that it's important for us to take a look at all of the projects that are being proposed on the common and try to make sure that we do them in harmony with one another, so that we don't end up with something here and something there and not all, talking to each other, so that we have, you mentioned stamped concrete or pavers or bricks, and the Veterans Corner is looking at doing something as well, and I just don't want it to be hodgepodge, which I'm afraid that if we don't have some oversight, that could be the case. So that's my only caution here. I am 100% behind working with Rotary to make this happen. But I just want to make sure that we do it appropriately and take our time in making the decisions so that we do them thoughtfully.
But I think it's something that we as a board do quickly, within 2 weeks, try to get these entities together, because obviously you don't get a project like this that's proposed very often for that amount of money that we're spending. I know working the 300th anniversary thing, all the fundraising we went through, and this isn't costing us anything. But I understand where you're coming from, and I have the same concerns, but at the same time, I think it's something we should do quickly if we can try to talk to the different entities that are involved in improving the common itself, so just to find out where they are. I know I have talked to a couple of the country gardeners, and they seem to be in favor of it. They know that you were coming back, but,
Right.
so I didn't get a final answer, but I mean, they seem to be in favor of,
Right.
yeah, I'm in favor of it. Oh, I just want to make sure that we do it.
So, Mr. Chair, can I say something?
Sure.
Sure. So I'm spearheading the Veterans Corner project with the veterans, as you know. What works well with this is that Dan Sturts is also working with me on that project, so it helps with the continuity, I think, between the gazebo project and the Veterans Corner project. And I have also spoken with Littleton Country Gardeners. So I think we can get everybody together on board to discuss this, and if that's where you're going with this,
I
Chuck, to
absolutely
get
am. Yeah, I
everybody.
think that-
Just make sure we're all on the same page about.
Right.
Because also being a Legionnaire and a VFW member, we're certainly very aware of the Veterans Project, and thank you, Cindy, for doing so much work on that. As we move forward in the synergy that can be obtained between the two. So we talked about the pavers, for example, use the same, similar, so it's or complementary, whatever.
Right.
Right.
So it's architecturally pleasing and aesthetically pleasing to us. We're all for that, and we're all for working with everybody in the town.
Right.
We would ask that your commission is that you do allow us to continue moving forward, to work directly with Cindy as we're looking at the Veterans Project and look at that piece of the common, in total, and continue that project and keep us going in that direction. Because as you know, and in fact, the Littleton Common Committee, for all the best intentions, established, well, maybe 5 years ago now, between fits and starts, we didn't quite get out of there what we would like to get out of there. So certainly moving forward, I'd like you to consider that this is iniquitous. It's really a good starting point. How can you funnel some of the things in that are supportive of that? Because it would be, obviously a grand structure on there. The most important one, personally, I gotta be honest with you, is the veterans, with everything it symbolizes.
Yeah.
Our flag is there, the monuments there to men and women from Littleton have gone forward and served our nation. But at the opposite end of that grandness, if you will, for our small common, that gazebo would provide that.
Yeah, I think I agree with everything you said. But I think there's some coordination that has to happen with Mr. Stoddard and with,
Right.
There's a lot of moving parts here, and I just want to make sure that we don't say, yes, go ahead, put it right at that crossroad, and then say, oh, if we had known now what we knew, I just want to make sure we cross all Ts and dot all our Is. I just wanted, Mr. Houston had his hand up, so.
Rob Houston, Meeting House Road. I just wanted to add another group to get in the mix of your conversations with veterans and the Rotary is the Master Plan Implementation Committee should also be participating, I would think, with those conversations. True or not? It's a question.
And Mike Zeldin is.
Mike's not here, Anna's not
and
here.
your wife is too.
Yeah, but neither of them is here, so I just wanted to throw it out there so that.
I appreciate that.
on
I
TV.
think I threw it out there as well, right?
On TV.
So, yeah, I think I did.
You did, I just wanted to reiterate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I can go home
now.
I'll tell Anna that you had her back. Nope.
This one, no.
You back?
You guys got it.
Is there any left?
No, I love the idea. I mean, frankly, I very much trust Rotary to do a great job, so.
Please don't
if it
misconstrue
takes a
my-
couple, and I didn't mean to suggest you do,
Yeah.
but if it takes a couple more weeks to make sure everybody's involved, then we are
So,
in fact dotting i's crossing.
As far as, I don't think we're gonna stand in your way. And I will go to bat for this project moving forward. But I would like, Cindy, where you have some involvement, where you're spearheading the Veterans Corner.
Uh-huh.
And Joe, where you've got oversight of the Common, figuratively and literally.
Does he have a perch
I
up
would
the-
ask, he kind of does, yeah.
Might as well.
Would you be willing to work with Cindy and with Rotary and with Master Plan?
I
Steering
definitely
Committee?
would, and reference was made to the Littleton Common Committee. That committee has been, it was
Well,
formed and it's not functional, so I don't think that's an entity that we have to include in this.
No, that's fine. I don't, fits and starts, I think, I think you're right. I think that we can do this kind of under our own tent and just make sure that you guys coordinate with, again, Chris Stoddard, Rotary, Master Plan Implementation Committee. But as far as, I think, getting our blessing, we're not gonna say no to you donating a $55,000 gazebo to us. It's just a matter of coordinating the placement and the timing, really.
I'm taking your direction then, that Rotary will work with Joe and with Cindy.
Please.
To continue moving this project forward for an eventual completion date of about May of next year.
That's what we'll shoot for.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I like him.
I like him. I like him too.
He's so smooth.
And just a quick shout, thank you very much to Mr. Avella for donating his services, raising the flag on Friday night. The first flag raising at Alumni Field. Paul Avella has retired Colonel in the Air Force, and newly minted Second Lieutenant Tyler Rocker raised the flag for us, and I was appreciate that and appreciate your service.
The past of the future.
Exactly. All right, did anybody have any comments about the gazebo? I didn't really open it up. No. There's a lot of you here, I just didn't want anybody to feel like they weren't able to be heard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
very much.
Appreciate it.
Hey, guys, you got a minute?
Thank you for coming out. All right, so we have a little work ahead of us here, guys. October 30th, 2017, special town meeting. I lost the bet.
You did.
On time of adjournment.
What was it about 9 o'clock?
Well, the field thing, I knew was gonna.
Yeah, Monday I'll bet. But you assume we'd be
I
done.
was here 10 minutes late because of the traffic on 495.
Yeah, that's what it
I
was.
must-
That's right, it was
That's
the
right.
backup on 495.
Is that still in parking lot?
Might be.
Were you southbound?
I was working, normally I come home on 495, but I was working back roads to get here because it was a parking lot from Route 3 to Route 2.
So from Woburn to here?
Well, just 495, overturned tractor trailer.
Yeah, well, I knew that. Yeah, I came up. Did the same thing, back roads coming north.
Yeah, pretty unpleasant.
October 30th, 2017, special town meeting, finalized warrant articles. Chris is here to discuss Article 13.
How you doing, Chris?
Draft Article 13, is it?
Yeah, there's, the warrant's all set to go, except that we need to discuss two articles. We need to discuss the recreational marijuana moratorium article and the agricultural commission article.
Right.
Chris is here, can talk about both of those, specifically on, and the idea, the issue is, in what form will those articles be posted? And because after tonight, after you order them posted, we will post them tomorrow and finalize them. So this is, the warrant closed on Friday, it's in your hands now, you can still make adjustments, but after tomorrow, it's gonna, we're gonna tack it on the bulletin boards. And if there were any further amendments to be made from the article as posted, those could be addressed in motions.
On
For
the floor.
example, on the floor of town meeting or in recommendations that this board brings forward or the planning board in case of zoning. But we wanted to try to at least hear a request that has been made to us in the first instance of the recreational marijuana moratorium. We received a request from our current licensee for medicinal marijuana, asking that their entity, Sanctuary Medicinals, which has been issued a so-called RMD permit by the planning board locally and by the Mass Department of Public Health. They are asking that they be exempted from the moratorium. And we've talked, and Chris can go through it, we've talked about what the new law is, and if there's a way for us to carve out the cultivation site from, or cultivation sites in general, from dispensaries in particular, and just walk us through. It's a brand-new law, and...
Sure.
And
So just,
yeah.
by the way, just a little bit of history for the newer members. We entered into an HCA, and Chris, you can blow holes in this, or if I'm misspeaking, let me know. But we entered into an HCA when Sanctuary came to town, and there was financial benefit to the town, and they were speculating that recreational was going to be approved, which it was overwhelmingly in Littleton, the number one, it was the highest passage in the state. 77% was it, Chris? Littleton?
that's close, yeah.
So it was written into the HCA that when recreational passed, we would get a bump up. So it was assumed that they would be able to cultivate for recreational, and the town would go from X to X plus something for the, I don't want to misspeak on what the numbers are, but I think it was an additional $10,000 on top of, yeah.
Exactly an additional $10,000 per year, what if they converted from strictly medical cultivation to recreational as well.
Right, and there's no way to put a sales multiplier at 3% of net sales because they're a cultivation site, and they're dispensing through the dispensaries, so they're growing it inside. They have a secured facility where their van pulls in, pulls out, goes to the dispensaries, and they can only sell through their own dispensaries unless they get into a wholesale situation. So that's kind of a little bit of history. So they saw the moratorium as potentially hindering their ability to proceed within Littleton as their cultivation site. Okay.
That's right, so almost immediately after the town signed the HCA with Sanctuary, then the voters approved recreational at the ballot. So that law went into effect not long after that vote. But then the law on recreational marijuana was redone by the legislature, and that new version of the law took effect in July of this year. So the new version is effectively brand new. Partially in reaction to the adoption of that new version of the recreational marijuana law, which came into effect in July, we had initially suggested that the town ought to adopt a temporary moratorium on all recreational establishments. It's the kind of broad-based, it's drafted to be incredibly broad-based and to apply to recreational marijuana, retail, processing, cultivation, any possible aspect of the recreational marijuana business was covered in the original version of the bylaw that we put forward. Then, like both Keith and Chuck said, Sanctuary came forward to express the concern that if they were otherwise allowed by state law to convert from medical to recreational cultivation, that this temporary moratorium, if the town adopted it in its original form, could complicate their efforts to do that conversion or prevent them from doing so entirely. Part of the rationale that they expressed was they're going to need to go to the state for permits if they want to get into the recreational business, and they're likely going to need to show to the state that they're not prevented from locating at their current site in order to get their state permits. So they expressed the concern, and I had a conversation with Sanctuary's attorney about how to, if the town were amenable to it, how to carve out an exception for their existing site to convert from medical to recreational without opening the town up to this use all over town during the moratorium period, which the town is going to spend adopting a comprehensive zoning bylaw that really discusses where these things can go once the law really goes into effect. So we had that conversation about how to draw a very narrow exception for Sanctuary, and the solution that seemed the best possible approach, or the narrowest possible approach, was to have the temporary moratorium continue to apply to all recreational uses, except for properties where there was an existing special permit in place for medical already, and also that the operator under that special permit goes on to get everything it possibly needs from the state and the town in order to operate. So essentially, we had our original proposal. I then asked Sanctuary's council to make a proposal that was the narrowest possible exception. He did. I didn't have any great problem with most of it, tweaked it a little bit, and came up with a third version, which was, again, our new version with the exception for sanctuary. And I think we've now arrived at a consensus draft between town council's office and sanctuary that would impose the broad-based moratorium everywhere else in town, but carve out an exception for sanctuary.
And that's in this Exhibit C?
That is, well, that's the last remaining point, is Sanctuary's council had one last proposed change late this afternoon, which I have a copy of in my hand, and I have in email form, that he suggested, and that is that the last version that I had put forward in the letter that I wrote to
Their council.
To you guys for tonight. The very last sentence at the end.
Temporary moratorium shall not be applicable.
That sentence there, he has added 5 or 6 words, so that last sentence will now read, "This temporary moratorium shall not be applicable to any property in town where there is an existing special permit to operate a registered marijuana dispensary for cultivation and processing only by the holder of a provisional certificate of registration from the Massachusetts Department of Public Health issued prior to the effective date," and then so on with no further changes. So really just adding, it is, the exception to the moratorium is now going to be for any property in town where there is an existing special permit to operate a registered marijuana dispensary.
I think that's a good
I like
addition.
that better.
I like that addition.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because the idea is that we're bringing forward a moratorium that carves out that which the planning board has already approved. We're not, and it's irrespective of what the state might have done, the planning board has issued, has given its approval to that site.
And it narrows it further.
Yes.
That language does not let him do recreational,
That language does not let him do recreational.
because we'd have to amend the zoning bylaw at a future date to do recreational. All it does is exclude him from the moratorium, for whatever that's worth.
So what's the, I'm trying to figure out what the benefit is.
So
of that.
he's able to go for licensing, because he's got basically, am I
I
correct?
mean, great, he can get a piece of paper, but if,
No, the piece of paper is the other permitting process, which is the Mass Department of Public Health, which, I mean, we're just the local, approvers of the site. The ability to have the license at all is a state issue, and actually, we don't know what their
yeah,
rules are
what's the
gonna be.
timeline on
The Cannabis
Control
Commission was
They're saying March, so probably June.
They're due to issue their regulations in March, like you said. I don't have any great confidence that deadline will be hit, but that's the deadline that they're currently operating under. So Sanctuary does believe there is that not being subject to the moratorium will assist them with the state permitting process as soon as they can engage in it, which could be as soon as March. Right.
so can I keep trying to understand this, because right now I still haven't got my head wrapped around it. So they don't want to be subject to the moratorium, but they won't be able to grow recreational marijuana. Is that?
Right,
correct?
Right, that's right. You got it.
But they'll be, if there's a moratorium in Littleton, and they're subject to the moratorium, then they can't submit any applications with DPH to get licensed to grow recreational marijuana. Because there's a moratorium. So we're giving them a little sliver to say to DPH, no, Littleton's okay with us going for this. Doesn't mean that there's still zoning that has to happen.
And then the zoning on our end is my other
Right.
concern here, is that presumably, we are putting this moratorium in place because we have no zoning bylaws.
Right.
And I'm concerned about the, if you give a mouse a cookie problem, like, oh, okay, we'll write you this, exception, but then it comes time for the zoning bylaws, and they go, oh, you already gave us an exception, you can't apply that to us. So,
They have also asked, so they added the second request, which is the one you're talking about, after our initial conversation. The second request that they added was that, the two. One, can we have an exemption from your temporary moratorium? Two, will you please amend your zoning bylaw to explicitly allow for recreational cultivation at that site? So
And we could only do one of those now, because because we're amending zoning with the moratorium, there is nothing else posted, there's no, writing a new zoning bylaw for recreational, that we're doing. More to the point, the new statute is extremely convoluted and has a lot of steps for us to go through. The way we can look at it is that if we are allowed to adopt a zoning bylaw that differentiates between cultivation and dispensaries, then we have a shot at bringing a cultivation recreational bylaw to town meeting as soon as May. But that it is a much longer process for, if the desire is, just guessing, if the desire is not to have or to somehow limit the number of dispensaries in town, the statute that the governor signed in July has a very demanding schedule, and starting with a referendum, a ballot question, if you're going to limit the number of licenses. So even our zoning, which gave one license and only one license under medicinal, that doesn't hold up. That won't hold up if that's our standard with the new bylaw. We would have to go for a referendum ballot question first at our annual town election, I'm presuming, and then after that have a zoning bylaw that is adopted.
That's correct. The timetable is if you want to prohibit or limit the number of dispensaries or any kind of dispensaries is the wrong word there, any different kind of marijuana establishment, which is retail, cultivation, and processing. You need to do it by ballot, and you need to do it by ballot before you adopt the bylaw that is going to put that ballot vote into effect. So we could adopt at the annual town meeting a bylaw that allows for some subset of recreational uses. But if we want to prohibit or limit the number of, we've got to do it in the staggered way of ballot followed by town meeting vote.
So the town of Milford just took the first step in that process to ban. Sorry.
And there are two ways to address sanctuaries concerns, and one would be to make changes to the article before it's posted. The other is if you didn't want to do that, and actually the feedback I got today from Maren, and I know that Ed Mullen has been briefed as well, it didn't sound like the planning board was opposed to this approach, but I thought Ed was going to be here to confirm.
Ed was here earlier. But
yeah, okay. But he has to work tomorrow, so. And the other way is not change the article and have this change come up at the public hearing, and to have the motion be amended. We went over both of those options with Sanctuary. Sanctuary prefers amending the article, so we're here tonight to talk about that approach.
And help me understand again what happens if we take no action with respect to amending the article either here or on town meeting floor. What is currently written is what's passed. How does that impact Sanctuary in a negative way?
They will.
And how does it impact us? Maybe it's the better question.
They become subject to the temporary moratorium, and they will not be allowed, regardless of whatever permits they managed to obtain from the state prior to December 31st, 2018, they will not be allowed to cultivate recreational marijuana locally under our zoning bylaw. So,
Until we amend the zoning bylaw to
Until we
allow it.
amend the zoning bylaw.
Yeah.
And.
But that's where they are anyway, right?
Yeah.
That'll be the outcome no matter what happens.
I understand.
It's all a matter of the timing, really. If the state holds true to its timing, and we pass the original moratorium, they won't even have a seat at the table. So all of the licenses could potentially be handed out, so they could wait 2 years until the next pool of licenses are, and they won't even be able to get dispensary licenses, because the only place they're cultivating in Massachusetts is in Littleton, for medicinal, with the thought that when recreational is passed, that they would be able to, because we've already vetted that, and we've already gone down that road. So it would have a significant impact on them. The impact that it would have on us would be $10,000 additional in the HCA per year.
And is there a third path forward where we put what's currently drafted, as in, without the exception, on the ballot, that passes without amendment, and we
Warrant
pass,
or ballot?
or, I'm sorry, on the warrant? Do we have an opportunity to amend that in the spring, if we so choose? I mean, right now, the Cannabis Control Commission is such a mess that I don't think anyone really knows.
Well, it doesn't actually even,
Right, okay.
It's just been seated, right?
Yeah, I think only partially. There's a couple members who've been appointed, but not, I don't believe all of them have yet.
Just 5 members?
It is possible, I think, it is certainly possible to adopt a moratorium now and amend it somehow in the spring. It's at least a little unusual, I think, given that, you know, the whole purpose, well, I've never seen it happen that way, but it's sort of.
It was not intended to be a leading question, truly hypothetical.
So let me offer this. There's an opportunity for us. We had multiple applicants come to us, and Sanctuary came to the top pretty quickly. As a good corporate citizen, you know, wanted to work with the town, and they put their best foot forward. We put our best foot forward, and I think they've, based on, we've gone on tours, Joe and Keith and myself and some others from town, the planning board, Maren, a bunch of us went to their cultivation site up in Rochester, New Hampshire, and it's a very well run operation. Everything that they said when they stood here, and they had the police chief from Rochester, New Hampshire, everything that they've said, they've followed through on. They've been, I think the intent was for them to grow recreationally in Littleton. If we can, if this is not gonna hurt Littleton in any way, and I think that Chris has worked hard, and, you know, Keith, and I've been looped in on some of this, but mostly it's been Keith and Chris and Tom Harrington have been working with Sanctuary to try to, you know, work together, just like with Patriot Beverage. We worked together with them to try to get them to go to Very Fine. So, you know, we're taking a build, they bought the building. They've made an investment in Littleton. It was a building that was not producing anything. It was, you know, so now we're getting tax revenue, potentially jobs, you know, so I think it shows good faith from us, and it doesn't cost us anything. And it really doesn't, there's no exposure for us.
I can't think of any, because, you know, they perceive some value in being exempt from the moratorium, and they see that value in how it's going to work for them when they go to the state for their permits, as soon as they're humanly able to do it. I can't.
It doesn't affect us one way or the other.
No, it doesn't.
I mean, because they can't proceed until they get their local zoning approval, and if they think being exempt from the moratorium at least allows them to keep hope alive.
I have a process concern here, in the sense that doing this at the 11th hour, planning, you know, we have some informal input from planning, but I would certainly, if time allowed, like to have their input, given that it comes back to a zoning amendment. And frankly, doing things like this at the 11th hour makes it prone to mistakes or things that we haven't considered. Not to say that
That's why we pay him.
I completely understand that, but doing things at the 11th hour is a recipe for making mistakes. I don't see any, and
Respectfully
I completely understand that Chris has put good work in here.
Yeah.
But we haven't engaged planning. One meeting where we've discussed an exemption for a specific business in town at 9:15.
Does anybody else have any concerns or questions relative to?
I honestly don't share the same concern Chase does. Simply because just like you said, the facts that we've been there before, plus what we do tonight, if it doesn't pass a zoning bylaw, nothing changes anyway. So what we do tonight won't have an effect other than helping them maybe get the ball rolling for permits.
Right.
I understand your concern, but I don't think it affects us at all.
Right.
And I think that we've crossed Ts and dotted Is, and
I think the zoning will work fine, and they'll still need whatever they need from the state. So there's the added layer of state review is going to happen no matter what, in order for them to get up and running. This is just to clear the road for them to go try to do that once the regulations become final.
Allows them to continue with the process.
that's their
Basically.
perception. I don't know
Their
whether or not it
perception is
does.
at the state level, but the
Right.
state hasn't even issued their
Right,
regulations.
so at least,
So-
I mean, there's a
They're
very
reading
real
they're reading the
likelihood
tea
that December
leaves.
31st, 2018,
It's
that all of this
yeah,
becomes
it's all
moot
moot.
anyway.
It's all moot,
right,
yeah.
I
right.
completely understand.
Yeah, so it keeps the door open for them.
I think it does.
Yeah.
Approved the prior
Or it-
moratorium.
Not prepared, no.
Did she disapprove it? Okay.
They've got, I think,
We still have
3 more
till the
days.
end of the week. Yeah, this may all be moot if the AG miraculously approves the moratorium we approved last May.
And, I mean, listen, we don't always need to have a consensus on everything. I completely understand.
Yeah, and I understand your concerns, and I mean, part of me is frustrated that one of us or the planning board, either the planning board didn't come to us and say, hey, we already have one of these in place, how's that gonna affect them? I know we have an HCA, or myself being involved in, the original interviews, and that I didn't raise a flag and say, hey, this, so I'll take that bullet, but I still think that there's no exposure to the town. And I think that it shows good faith, if nothing else, to a business that's coming into the community and it's gonna be not only paying taxes on a commercial building, but
No, and I agree, it does show good faith. I weigh those a little bit
Yeah.
differently. That's good.
So, I think I know where you're at.
Yep,
Yeah,
and that's fine, I don't think I'm gonna change my mind.
And I'm okay
There's
with
nothing
that
wrong
too.
with that.
Yeah, but we need a motion on this though, right?
Okay.
Yeah, I think you'd want to, and I haven't drafted that motion, but I think you would want to have a motion to accept the changes for Article 13
As drafted with the
as they will be
changes.
drafted by town council before he leaves the room.
So that'll be Exhibit D.
Yes, Exhibit D, the Exhibit D that he's handing us right now.
Right.
so.
So I would ask that, so the motion would be that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve. Well, we're not sure if it's gonna be Article 13 though, are we? Or do we make sure that it is Article 13?
Yeah, vote to,
Now we just have everything but that one.
vote to approve changes to the temporary
Moratorium article.
zoning moratorium as presented by town council.
Does anybody want to say so moved?
So moved. As Keith just spoke.
As Keith just typed. Is there a second?
Second?
It's moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
It's 3-1.
So that's one. And the other one is Article, what appears here is Article 14, the acceptance of the Agricultural Commission statute. It's a new statute. The question that had come up during discussion was, how do you figure out which board controls what agricultural properties? And town council's opinion is that, first to advise us that there are two statutes under which, at least two statutes under which a town can acquire agricultural properties. And one of the statutes, this new one, is limiting and determinative. That is, if you accept, if you acquire the agricultural property and the vote says it's pursuant to that statute, Chapter 40, Section 8L, then it must be under the care, custody, and control of the Agricultural Commission. No ifs, ands, or buts. However, if you accept it under the other statute, which I'm not sure that it was named, then you get to decide. Then the vote of town meeting itself gets to decide where it goes. So,
when you say where it goes, what do you mean?
Under whose care, custody, and control. Yeah. So, accepting the statute. And further, I believe that it was from discussions that we had, that even if you accept the statute, you still have to go back to town meeting to determine who has care, custody, and control of the properties you acquired before now, because those were acquired under a different statute. And, right, and they're under the Selectmen. It would take a further vote of town meeting if you wanted to have them go somewhere else. So
anything that is under the care, custody, control of the town currently sits with the Board of Selectmen or designate.
Based on our current votes, I mean, I'd have to go back, Nagog Hill, Orchard, Church Meadows, that's it, right?
Right.
Yeah, that would be, yeah.
Those are under the Selectmen.
Like you said, that would be dependent on the specific vote to acquire each parcel. But if it was the original acquisition was to put the property in the care, custody of the Board of Selectmen, then that would remain true after.
And it would not have been to do so under Chapter 40, Section 8L, because there wasn't one.
It wasn't in existence.
So at that level, if it's controllable. That if the Board of Selectmen's desire, and I think it was the Agricultural Commission's desire as well, to come to, a mutual understanding of where the properties ought to be, and then you have town meeting so vote, you have the flexibility to do that even if you accept this statute, which does a number of other things of giving, commissioners power to, the long list of things in here.
Mm-hmm.
Future acquisitions, how would, next year, we decide to acquire an agricultural property?
If we vote to approve.
If we vote to accept this
You
statute,
vote to accept
what
it,
happens?
then you ought to have a long talk with the Agricultural Commission about how the article's going to read, and which section is going to be referenced. And if you're...
On a property-by-property
Yes.
basis, as we bring it to town meeting.
Yes.
So we still have control in the future, but we need to be cautious of.
You have control so long as the town meeting article grants you control. Let's not write the article the wrong way. Let's not, if there could be a motion on the floor of town meeting to change from this statute to that statute. There are some things that are out of our control, but in terms of working with, the way to do it would be to make sure we're working with the Agricultural Commission and the Board of Selectmen together to figure out how you want to do it, and then bring that to town meeting.
Can I pose another hypothetical? AgCom has, we now accept land and it's under the care, custody, and control of AgCom. We, the Board of Selectmen, are not comfortable with how it's being managed. Do we have recourse to pull it back, or is it theirs and theirs?
Town meeting.
You have recourse to pull the Agricultural Commission back,
But otherwise it would take an article.
it would be,
Town meeting article to
town
change
meeting,
custody
yeah,
control.
town meeting would have, and then I guess I'd ask council if if it's accepted under this new statute, whether you can actually, whether you can go back and amend it to say that, to change the statute under which, to change the vote to reference a different statute. And maybe the statute's too new to know what the answer is.
I
to
don't
that.
think we know the answer to that question yet.
I'm not excited about the idea of making case law either.
It's, you know, it's like, I don't know, like certainly with conservation land, you need 2/3 vote of the legislature and all of that. I haven't heard of any agencies that are, you know, sticking their nose into that business. But it's a controllable, it's not out of control, but it will require monitoring if you accept the statute. So just to be aware. And we did have town council draft some language that made these provisions clear in the form of the article as it's currently in your draft warrant. So Article 14 has incorporated the language changes. And specifically, it says the commission shall have, in section 8-11, powers and duties, paragraph 4, the commission shall have sole management control of any interest in any agricultural land acquired after the effective date of this bylaw acquired pursuant to Chapter 40, Section 8L. So not pursuant to some other statute, but pursuant specifically to this statute, because that's what the law does say.
So, Chris, is it your opinion that we're a little premature in this, or are we ahead of the curve, or?
I don't think you're ahead of the curve necessarily, although it is, you know, I'll back that up. When Keith has just asked me a question that I don't think we know the answer to yet, because nobody's had to deal with it quite yet. You know, it's a new, relatively new statute. So I'll leave that to.
That's, no, okay.
Leave that with you guys.
I think you just gave me your answer.
Can you explain the last paragraph to me after, in the work plan?
The one in red line?
The and?
Yeah, and to assign.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Okay, so that is not part of the bylaw, but part of the warrant article. So what that will allow town meeting to do is to transfer, so the town's accepting the statute, adopting a bylaw that will govern the business of the new agricultural commission. And then this final piece right here will allow town meeting to transfer the care, custody, management, and control of some properties in town, if there are any, that we want to.
But we don't have any for this town meeting, so should we take that out?
If we do not contemplate transferring any parcels over to the newly created commission, yes, we should delete that one.
Yeah, let's take it out, because we're not. We were asking the question of how would you do it, but we weren't proposing to do it, so I'd say we could take that out.
I guess anytime you're giving anything up, there's some,
If we were all okay to give them Church Meadows or Nagog Hill Orchard, this would be, you just insert those names in the last paragraph. I don't think we're ready.
I don't think we're there yet, right?
No.
Not there yet, but
No, absolutely.
we could, no.
I mean, like, I fully support this article, but the idea,
Fully.
yes, I actually really like this one.
Going full.
Yeah. But just the accepting the statute.
That's, I'm okay with that as well. Now, as far as resources, for that, that's a conversation for another time, I suppose.
Well, I think the key to the discussion of the agricultural properties would be for the agricultural working group to convene and start meeting, and from that, we can see what, I mean, because right now, I mean, those properties are the selectmen's properties. So we, you know, we're not giving them any land yet.
Right. All right, so we'll, Maybe I'll reach out to Mr. Glavy, see where we're at with that. Okay.
All right.
So with that, then we have 16 articles, and the task is to determine the order in which they appear, and just for, if you want to see the list, you can go to item 7B and go to page 3. 7B is the first draft of the town meeting report, the voter information booklet, and in the title page, the table of contents in there has the list of articles for reference. Put them up on the big tote board here. And as we discussed before, the package of the three affordable housing articles, which appear here as 5, 6, and 7, would be together early on, but there was some thought that maybe you'd have, take a few, just procedural, get warmed up, let people, get vote, get checked in, and I don't think that we would, it shouldn't take more than, 10, 15 minutes to get to those first 4 articles, if that long.
So,
Are we doing calling of the articles again? The town meeting?
I think that we will be. I've asked Tim Goddard to get me his script for the report.
Okay.
On what the procedures would be, but I think it was the intent to do the calling of the articles at this one also.
I personally like 5, 6, and 7, which are, have a direct correlation or relation to seniors. Seniors at the luncheon that I've attended, seniors were saying there's a lot of things that they wish that they could stay for at town meeting, but because it goes so late, they have to go home or their ride or, whatever. So I think that if we can keep those at 5, 6, and 7 after the calling the articles, in theory, they would still be relatively early on in the evening. So I like the fact that those.
Yeah, I think that's a sweet spot. I mean, by that point, we should have hopefully gotten anyone who's backed up or a few minutes late in, but
So even with the calling of the articles, there's no chance that those are going to get moved later? 5, 6, and 7?
No, they wouldn't, no, and presuming that they get called, so.
Right, yeah.
actually, I'm going to guess most of these things
Going to be lumped?
get debated. No, actually, I was thinking most of them will get debated. At least briefly.
Well, they might.
I just feel with town meeting, you never know sometimes
Yeah, that's true.
what's going to get debated forever. So personally, I'd like to see them moved earlier than 5, 6, and 7, but that's just my thought.
Well, bills of prior years, I mean, those first 4 articles.
We won't
Need
have
to
any,
be.
yeah,
Yeah, there'll be no debate.
Okay,
there'll be no debate.
okay.
So those are really right up.
They really are, it's almost like vocal training. It's
Okay.
like, do
Yeah.
the mics work, do the, can you hear me?
Oh, it's us reading the mail,
Yeah.
some of the
Yeah.
consent agenda kind of stuff.
Okay,
But also, there was the concern expressed that if we start on, if you start on time, 7 o'clock, and then there's still people filing in
Right.
for the first 10,
Right.
15 minutes, so.
I mean, if someone
understand
were as impolite as to be 10 or 15 minutes late.
We didn't take any votes. We waited.
We'll experience the traffic, no worries. Does anybody have any strong argument for changing the proposed order?
I think it's fine the way it is.
Yeah, nothing of any significance whatsoever.
That state speed limits is gonna be a doozy.
We're going to have a graphic there, we're going to have maps, we're going to have we've got the chief and deputy and
The radar gun?
Chris working on the police to work on their proposals, and Chris can put them on a map to show what would be proposed for 25. miles an hour, which for 20, and so on.
No, I think, I'm pretty,
Yep. Article 8 flows nicely from 5, 6, and 7.
absolutely,
That
yeah.
makes sense.
Personal exemption, yep.
And then the,
Transfer of ownership. Yeah, looks good to me.
Okay.
something's gotta come last.
Right. So, under, agenda item 7A, Mr. Clerk, you want to read that? Motion?
Move the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the order in which the articles appear on the October 30th, 2017 special town meeting warrant as presented, and to direct that the constable post said warrant forthwith.
Second?
It's been moved and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Thank you. You've got the language?
I emailed you the, I've already emailed you the,
Okay.
I haven't deleted the.
You're going to email me the next one?
I'll get it to you forthwith.
Or else we send the constable out after.
Love that word.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you all.
Chris, thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks.
Safe travels.
Okay. Now,
All right, so in 7B,
7B, it would be nice, you've got tonight and you've got next Monday night, but no later to go to actually adopt recommendations on the articles. Some are not ready yet, for example, the zoning, we won't know. The planning board will have their recommendations, hopefully at their October 5th public hearing. And so we'll be able to incorporate those in the booklet that goes out.
Our next meeting is the 9th?
No,
It's the
that's,
second.
it's the second,
Second.
it's next Monday night, and then the 23rd after that. So, and this goes to the publisher the day after Columbus Day. So the 9th is Columbus Day, it's a Monday, we don't meet, goes to the printer on the 10th to get it ready to mail out 2 weeks ahead of time.
so as far as, I think we need to have some further discussion maybe around the Article 14, unless that was the marijuana.
13, yeah.
The marijuana?
14 is, oh, I'm sorry, 13.
Yeah, 14 was the AgCom.
I'm sorry, yep. So I would say that maybe, actually, tax title properties, do we want to maybe have a little more conversation around that too, Keith?
I think you do, yeah. Just so folks are aware, the issue had come up on tax title properties. We'd heard from, I'd heard from one of the, let me see if I have.
Jeffries?
Yeah, I'm going to put this up on the screen. We heard from,
416 is the one that came before us. Danielle came before us,
Right.
saying she needed to.
Right, we agreed that
416.
those are all for 4.
right, so 416 wants this portion behind. During the discussion, the board said, well, why don't you come up with why don't you carry this line across and offer that to 414?
And then we'll give the rest back to.
Right, and then the balance, which is an L-shaped, it's
Goes out to Newtown.
that goes out to Newtown Road and then goes behind these two and abuts the Yap Conservation Land. We heard from this resident who thought that she should have been offered.
So my guess is maybe.
But there are in fact 1, 2, 3 immediate abutters. And that's just on that side alone, plus this one. So you've got 4. If you were to somehow carve off something here, I don't know, then you've got 3 abutters. And our answer was that this portion had been offered to the Conservation Commission.
But, I mean, if we're doing the right thing, we absolutely should, I mean, we did a reach out to the believers at 414 Newtown Road, and we didn't consider the other butters because we automatically said, oh, just give that back to Conscom. If we're giving up, potentially, offering up, I shouldn't say giving up, offering up parcels to the butters, as long as it's under 4,800 square feet, it qualifies. I mean, if they're in a position where they are willing and able to participate, I think we have to go back to the drawing board and make that.
See, I would argue that there's a substantial distinction between offering up portions of that parcel for 414 and 416 versus the other abutters, and that is the access to Newtown
I
Road.
was just gonna ask you about that.
In the corridor that presents, both in terms of human access and wildlife
Right.
access and traverse.
Right.
And so I think there's a substantial town interest in
Okay.
maintaining that corridor.
Right.
And I'm very sensitive to the fact that, you know, it is not equitable in the sense that not everyone gets a
Part of the
bite
Because
of
I
the
think we
apple.
discussed that
We did.
at
And,
that
and, you
initial
know,
meeting.
to be perfectly honest, I don't have an answer for you for what would that corridor be used for, and I don't think conservation does either, but having that corridor and that access is a substantial town interest.
And I'm not sure if it's this property owner that's asked for this access, why not this property owner, who's in fact,
Well, if we were in fact going to go back to the drawing board, I would say that every single abutter that abuts
Mhm.
that piece of
Yeah.
property would
If-
need
if-
to be invited to the table.
yeah.
Yep.
If, I would think that if we're gonna go back to the drawing board, what you may want to do, and just an idea, is limit this article just to this. That,
For
the
now.
the problem that you've solved is this one. The problem that's been created is the rest of it, which is not which is not solvable to the satisfaction
I
of the
still see
abutters. You know, so.
Inequality there, I still
Yeah.
see it, yeah. almost.
Did we hear from 414 Newtown?
There's he has no compelling reason to do it, and I shouldn't say he,
Mhm.
but it's not necessarily dead.
Okay.
So. And then the other side of it is the financial benefit, albeit a small one, to the town, because now we're getting some tax revenue out of more of it. I don't know, I'm sure we could quantify it if we wanted to quantify it, but
Right, how much does an assessment
This-
go up if you had
yeah.
4,800 square feet?
This will be
of-
the article that we debate for 45 minutes, though. Just
it
predicting.
could potentially.
Yeah.
I mean-
I like this plan. I think this balances both the interests of the property owner who specifically had a request associated with managing their property and satisfying their acute needs,
Mhm.
while also satisfying the needs and wants of the town.
Yeah, I just,
But this was also a plan that Paul brought forward. You know, ultimately, the consensus builder was Paul, so I like the idea of pushing this out to the next meeting to make sure that Paul.
no,
can
I
provide some
agree.
input.
That's why I said we need some further discussion around it.
Yeah.
However, if we were gonna make any changes to it, we pretty much have to do it now. Am I correct, Keith?
Well, you're stuck with, Chris? Oh, the issue is what amendments are allowed within the four corners of the article.
Right.
And can you,
How broad is it?
you know, and the article calls for you to carve up that existing lot, which is, I forget what I'm sure the article has what the
It
reference
does.
is.
U 114-117.
So that's the one that's being carved up, and can you carve it up into four pieces instead of three? I don't know. Depends on what the moderator says.
Do
Is it,
we, so, I'm sorry, the
No,
three of
go
us
ahead.
were starting to speak.
I'm the chairman, so I have to sit back and let you guys talk.
Is that how this works?
Ladies first.
Oh, does it need to be so much square feet
I don't know.
to be carved out?
It can be
No more than 48.
no more than 4,800.
No more than
square-
4,800,
No more than
okay.
4,800.
And that home from the Jeffries is closer to this lot line, correct? Is that the home right there? I thought it was an empty lot, Keith, that's why I
Yeah,
had that
I'm not
question
seeing
earlier
it.
today. Because on Google Map, whatever I was looking at, it didn't look like there was a home on it. But when I looked at the assessors map, there was a single-family home. Long driveway off of Manchester Drive.
What was it? I was gonna say something. Oh, I also think well, I have 2 points. One, my objections notwithstanding, I think it was the will of the board to make sure that the initial applicant had the opportunity to acquire the 4,800 square feet behind their property. Do we put their ability to do that at risk?
Because it's a town meeting article.
Because it's a town meeting
Right.
article and we're getting fancy.
Because it needs a 2/3 vote. Here's the, this is a screen capture of, so
you can
this
see
is
the
the
home.
lot, and then this is,
Driveway.
Yeah.
The house
so
is
these
back
are
of
the,
property.
these are the three properties that.
So they have frontage, they have a.
They have
Pretty large
frontage,
front
they have
yard, but-
frontage on,
They're frontage on Newtown as well.
on Newtown
Newtown as well,
Road
right.
and on Manchester.
So this is 150 here. What is this dimension here, Keith? Too close to it.
I can't tell from that.
That's 150, this is 100, so maybe that's 30.
I would also
I'm just
say that after one of our meetings, I went up to talk with Conscom because they were very strongly opposed to doing anything here. And they
Very
didn't take any votes on the matter, but
They were
reading,
receptive.
they were receptive and I think would ultimately support what we currently have on the article.
Yeah.
I imagine that changes dramatically if we open it up to the other three of us.
I'd suggest, and we can work with council on it, but maybe you'd want to divide this article up into three parts. Instead of having one thing, and then have separate motions. So for example, that we have a clear
Yes.
vote on the person that came to us, and then on the next one, and then on the one after that.
Right, because we also
Right.
don't want this to go down for the,
For Danielle.
where was the other property?
416.
416.
Oh, no, isn't the other abutter sale lumped into this article as well?
Yeah, you've got two
Potentially.
butter sales, yeah. you've
Right,
got-
right, so the abutter sale.
Gives us the opportunity to sell that other, yeah.
Yeah, but can't we take that one off? Is it possible, like you said earlier, Keith, that we only?
We could remove lever from it
Yeah, you
on
could.
town meeting floor, because that's within the four corners, right?
You could do that on town meeting floor. You could also take it out of the
Article
article
altogether.
if it's not ready to go, for the sake of resolving issues.
Well, I would think that's what we do, is to take it out and then we can resolve the question of other abutters later on.
Right.
Then the only question is, what do we put in for the Conservation Commission?
Yeah, see, in my opinion, taking it out and ignoring it altogether doesn't solve that, because now we're back to the position where,
I get it.
you know, you know.
But at a minimum, if we
I
put,
understand.
if we write the article with parts A, B, and C, A, B, C, then at least you get your vote. We could have a vote on A, the way that we parse the capital plan. That, you can call for a separation and you vote on them separately. Because I would be, where this property owner is ready to go, and just needs a vote in the clear, it would be good to be able to get that, even if we get bogged down in discussing the balance of the parcel.
And furthermore, 11 Elm Road is also lumped into this, and so we would want to make sure to
Parts
into
of
this
that.
article.
Yeah, in order to put it out there for tax house sales.
Right, and we would hate to see something that the board unanimously supported at 11
Right.
Elm Road go down. I don't know if I like the idea of carving out 416 though, because the idea is to treat it holistically. That the conservation piece balances out the, let's call it the encroachment piece.
So the,
And the issue about, just so you know, the issue about the conservation is If you vote to give the Conservation Commission this property, it takes an act of the legislature to take it away from them. So don't think that we can come back to a future town meeting and amend this vote, because we can't. So if you give this, whatever you give to the Conservation Commission is
Right, it's that
there
one-way
for
street we
keeps.
were talking about with.
Yeah, it's not, so it's, I mean, it's over. If you vote that, that's not gonna get revisited without a very torturous process of going back to the state legislature.
So we can't just take out 414
I mean, I
and just
think
leave it at 416, since 414 didn't express interest either way?
We certainly
This just
can
makes
buy-
it available for them to buy it, correct?
Yeah,
The article does not say they have to buy it. It makes it
available.
part of
No, but
the
they're
abutter
the only,
list.
they'd be the
They would be the
only
only
ones
ones
that
that
would be
could
qualified
purchase.
to buy it.
Right.
So that, it just makes that part, and if we determined that 414 was not interested in purchasing it, what process would we have to go through to give that back to, say, Conscom?
Another vote of town meeting.
Yeah.
That you could do.
Take it off the tax title abutter list.
Yeah, to do at a future town meeting, what, for this, what
Undo
we're
that.
doing at this town meeting for that.
Yeah.
Right, just toss that chunk. Yeah.
You could also do that at
I was
this
gonna try to
town
find
meeting.
her email, but.
You also redraw the line. I would guess on the floor of town meeting, though, if you got into it, that it would probably be within the scope to say, to add that to this, if that's what the floor wanted, if that's what the voters wanted to do.
Mhm.
If they quizzed you, does this person want this? Does this abutter want that? And then the answer is still,
We don't know.
we don't know. I don't know, I hope that the town's answer is not, come back to us when you know, and we'll not gonna approve this article in the meantime.
Right.
I hope that's not the answer.
Right. and they-
But it could be, they
I
could
mean,
get
if Ms.
cranky.
If Ms. Jeffries stood up and said, this is not fair, I should have been
Oh, yeah.
included, then town meeting might say, well, then we should get rid of the Conscom portion,
Mhm.
right? So.
And certainly town meeting
and then
would be
can make
well
that
within
amendment.
there.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So
At
there's a
which
number of
point you
scenarios that could
probably-
play
Yeah,
out.
at which
Right.
point it's gonna be difficult to get a 2/3 vote to do anything.
Right.
Mhm. I just
don't, it'd be a shame to have the one clear
Yeah,
one
that's what-
get caught in the crossfire.
Right.
What if we only, did you bring this up? We only do that, and we basically table the rest of the article? So we only do 416.
416 and leave
11
If
out.
all you do is this, and you don't mention the rest of it, the Concom is not at risk for anything, because
No.
it's still under the control of the selectmen, and it hasn't gone anywhere else.
Can't go anywhere else.
But it is all wide open for abutters now to slice it
The
dice.
potential's there, but that has to go to town meeting and get passed.
Mhm.
Right.
I also sense that if we did that, we would be putting that 416 piece at risk, because Conscom has already said they're strongly opposed to that. The reason that we brought them in and made them
But
comfortable with it is because
We
we were
offered
gonna
up.
move off another
And
piece.
it's fully our intention to give them that piece, but there could potentially be 4,800 square feet 3 times. That could be, I mean, Keith, would it be?
But that's my point, Chuck, that doing that takes out that corridor almost entirely.
Yeah,
It
but I
takes
mean,
out half that
we're
corridor.
here to serve everybody, right? So they're part of everybody. And I understand Conscom is as well, but I mean, if we can't exactly say, okay, 416, we're gonna do this for you, but we're not gonna offer it to your neighbor over across the way.
See, I think we can, because there's a substantial town interest in different portions of lots U14, 117.
Did
I think
they,
if this was a big square, you're absolutely right. But different portions of that have different value.
Yeah, and they might only want 10 feet.
I was just gonna say,
Right up to here.
did they
You know, I don't-
express
I don't
what they
know. I
wanted
don't
it
know what
for?
Anything less than 4,800 square feet is what they can go for.
Did they
we
state
don't
they
know.
had a
No.
need, or
No.
or how much they wanted,
They
or?
just expressed
Just how come-
frustration,
how come-
why weren't we
How come we
invited to the
didn't
table?
contact them to offer them the property?
Okay.
So,
I just don't want to jeopardize 416.
I don't either, I mean,
And
that's,
nobody
that's,
does,
that's,
no.
or 11 Elm, that's on the same article.
And I
We can
completely agree with the idea
chunk
of
that out.
carving those off. I
Yeah.
think carving off 11 Elm especially makes sense to me.
Right.
It doesn't make sense to me to carve off 416 because I view this holistically.
I fully understand where you're coming from, but I do think we dropped the ball. You know, I think we were being proactive by looking at 414 as a possible equitable situation, but we didn't look at the other abutters, and that's the whole purpose and intent of the abutter program. Is to take some of the land that we have that we're not doing anything with,
Right.
and not, you know, it's off the rolls. And if it offers a resident that is in a butter an opportunity to increase their footprint, their lot. Anthony's over there wishing we'd just move on.
well, it's better you
Tried to
just,
just walk
well,
out.
I know. We had to call home and say, I'm gonna be late.
every minute,
Levy was running the meeting, we'd be done by now.
yeah, well, every minute you discuss it now is 15 minutes you don't have to discuss it on town meeting.
Right.
Because they don't like us to be,
Deliberating it.
you know, making it up in front of them, so.
I don't know, I do feel as though we missed that one.
Yeah, I thought our intent was to maintain that corridor.
I definitely agree with you, but I had no, I'll say, I personally did not take into consideration the abutters over on the other side of the lot. I just,
Could we do this in the intervening week? Certainly, I don't think we're going to take any action on it tonight. Could we reach out to those abutters and understand what it is they're looking for or what their concerns are?
we can, but we're not able to make any,
Oh, right.
We can't address
Already said
them,
that.
we can't
address
resolve whatever their issues are
Been there, done that.
once the article is posted.
pays out to.
See, and just in terms of how the butter lot sales program does work, that the lots are available for sale under this program. This is what the board has adopted as the 49-page policy. Generally less than 4,800 square feet in size, in residential neighborhoods with privately owned building or at least one side, not needed by the town for open space or any other public use. And so the question is if, you know, and then it's who determines that, because I think Conservation Commission has essentially told us they think it's.
Well, yeah, they've said
They
that
think it's
they
needed
want
for
that
open
land
space.
and that they would not speak in opposition necessarily to the abutters of 414 and 416 Newtown Road, if in fact we were to give them care, custody, and control of U14, 117.
And I see that corridor as fitting in the public use.
I think we all did.
component.
I think we all did, and that was our intent, and that, you know, it wasn't malicious that we didn't include
No,
the
but
folks.
that,
in
but
here's the
that's,
thing.
but that conclusion for you to draw is correct and consistent with your own policy. You are supposed to draw that conclusion of what's needed. And it's not exclusively to give the property away to the butters, but it is to consider what, you know, what the needs of the town are.
So consider this hypothetical. We have an abutter come in, and we have whoever's north of that. And we have the abutter come in, and what's that, probably 100 and...
Right.
This guy right here. We have them come in and they want to take, let's say, half of that corridor. At that point, I would argue that that corridor is serving a public benefit and wouldn't, absent a strong compelling reason, to assume control of that portion of the corridor would argue that it should stay in control, in the town's control, because it provides a substantial public benefit. Which I think was the thought process in carving it up the way that we did.
Is there a structure on that property now?
The one with the 320-foot lot.
What is that there? I don't know. And go to Google Earth.
They've been maintaining that for over 10 years, that by right, they can.
There's a hedgerow right there. So.
Bahamas?
10 years.
I don't think it's 10 years.
I think it is.
I can go to Google Maps Earth View and see what, the street view, see.
I've got it up here.
What the building was?
So well, what do we want to do? Do we want to leave it as is? Do we want to?
I would like to leave it as is. I think we can make a compelling argument for it as structured.
All right, so.
Here's your area. So there's it's a winter time, but there's clearly some kind of hedgerow. I don't know if I can read this.
Tree line?
Yeah, tree line, hedgerow, something.
Okay, so this is 40 foot.
Yeah, this is that.
It just looks like on the map that Keith had up there, it looked like there was some sort of a structure on there. As far as zoning amendment, senior residential development, 5, 6, 7, and 8, do we want to take a position on those?
I think
5, 6, you can.
Pardon?
Yeah, you can.
Right.
I mean, especially if you're not, well, you're going to meet, if you want to, you're going to meet again next Monday night, so, although you still won't have the.
Yeah, I
planning
was
board
hoping to have the
public
benefit of the planning board's public meeting
You
before
want-
we
yeah.
voted on that, but.
Fair enough.
And that,
We're not going to.
in which case, your recommendation won't be in the booklet, but it's unavoidable, unless you're convening it on the 5th of October at the planning board meeting. You don't have a meeting after the planning board's hearing and prior to the.
Printing.
What goes in
Going
the
to the
booklet if
print.
we don't vote in time? Just the selectmen?
It'll just say selectmen recommendation forthcoming. If you want to say selectmen recommend,
I think this is
you could
too
take that vote tonight or next Monday.
Probably right.
Well, do we want to post for October 5th? We can make our decision right, with the print, if we,
I think it would be a good show of solidarity to have the selectmen and the council on aging and the planning board all there together, all in lockstep, because you're the team, you're the tag team
Yep.
that's bringing it to town meeting. That would be a great idea.
And I think it's important enough of an article that our vote should be in the booklet.
Yeah, if the voter information that goes out says the selectmen, we
Yeah,
don't know
what-
yet,
what does that mean?
that
Yeah.
sends
Planning
the
board,
wrong
right?
signal.
planning board starts at what time? 7? 7.
Well, I can see when the hearing is.
7 o'clock, yeah.
That's not-
Hearing on zoning amendments is at 8 o'clock.
It's 100 good men, the fundraiser. Their meeting is the 5th, right?
Right.
Thursday the 5th.
Yeah, there's no way I can go to it.
I have 3 things scheduled that night. Awesome. If the 3 of you could be there, Paul, and 2 of you, are you doing 100 good men as well?
I don't know. They got it planned on, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes.
Said, of course he is.
So this would leave us tonight as being our only opportunity to express.
When's it going to print? On the 10th?
Yes, on the,
Unless we posted a meeting on the 6th, which is a Friday.
How do you guys feel about a meeting Saturday morning at the Littleton Cafe for a cup of coffee?
it's not a place you can meet. It has to be on a list of,
Acceptable.
it has to be ADA accessible and all that, so.
So that following Monday is Columbus Day. I'm working. For what it's worth.
So do we just vote on it
You
tonight?
could vote on it, you could vote on it tonight. I mean, we've been living with those proposals for a long time.
Right.
And I think it would be, I think that, that it would send the right signal that you're supporting the work that the planning board and
Yeah.
council on aging are doing, so. Because the motion will be not what you offer, it will be what the planning board offers, but it would appear that selectmen support the article. So if there's any tweaking, the planning board they're in the tweaking business.
Well, what's the pleasure?
Vote.
Go for it. Okay, so 5, 6, 7, 8. Vernon Shirley. Schmeasels.
I wonder how that mind works.
I was gonna say, where do you come up with this stuff?
It's just amazing.
We're gonna do.
5, 6, 7, 8, okay.
So we have some conversation around transfer of ownership of Cooper Farm?
Yeah, you're going to have your public hearing next Monday
Right.
night, so you can do that then. You also have a public hearing next Monday night on
Hartwell
the
property.
layout of McIntosh, so you can do that then.
What about the Hartwell property donation?
Yeah, you could do that. Cemetery has already said yes.
So 5, 6, 7, 8, 10.
Tax title you want to discuss next week, or?
I think so.
Okay.
Okay. Do we want to try to get some more information about that? Talk to Conscom?
Yep.
It'd be nice to see if how Conscom would feel about just going forward with the one lot and holding the rest in abeyance. They'd get us out of a
Pickle.
long discussion if they would just let that happen.
Supplemental capital items, there's nothing really.
Nope, you're okay with with those funding, the master plan and
Yeah.
the sidewalks at the school. That's a good one. Zoning,
Speed limits.
yeah, speed limits.
You need more time with the moratorium? Or I mean, I don't think,
I mean, here's the thing. Obviously, I disagreed with the exceptions, but I will vote in favor
Consensus.
of the moratorium, as it's written, even though I disagree with making that particular change.
Which one
I
was
think
the,
overall it's too
That's
important. for
That's
us to
13, so you could
Yeah.
do that tonight.
okay.
14.
AgCom, we want to have some conversation around. All right, so
I think you're okay with 14, we take that paragraph out at the end of the AgCom
Okay.
article.
You guys okay with it?
yes.
Yes.
What was the capital items?
It was
12.
$90,000 for sidewalks and curbs at the school, and $50,000 for
Master plan.
the master plan. No, $80,000.
Yeah.
50 plus 30,
I have
80,000.
questions about that.
Yeah?
The master plan, yeah. It's just the common piece of it,
Which one is that one?
is that the one that Mike Zeldin came to speak about?
Yeah, $80,000 to be expended by the MPIC for costs
common
associated with
master plan.
implementation of the master plan,
Right.
including development of master
Right,
plan.
and you voted to insert those projects at the last meeting.
Wait, maybe I'm getting confused.
Well, the master plan for the Littleton Common and the comprehensive review of the zoning bylaw were definitely.
Those are
part of
to fund
They're
studies.
definitely part of that.
it. We can hold off on that, have another.
I just was
conversation.
wondering where he came up with those numbers and what exactly they plan to accomplish.
With the studies?
Yeah,
Mike gave a presentation on that 2 meetings ago.
yeah, I remember the presentation, I just didn't feel like it answered my questions. Or it left me with
Let's hold
more
off on it. Let's
questions.
hold off on
Yeah,
it.
absolutely. I mean, in the interim, we can reach out to.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have more we may have more information in time for Monday night also, because Maren is writing a grant application. Maren and I met with Anna Houston today, that there's an opportunity for state grant for $50,000 which those projects qualify
Already.
for.
Right.
And so Maren's drafting something that we don't have now, and that is a detailed scope of work under the program. All we have is the titles
Right.
of what
Right.
Michael wanted to do. Maren is going to flesh those
That
out
would
to
be
a
helpful.
specific work program.
Right.
So we can have that for next Monday
So
night.
let's entertain a
We'll have
motion.
more information about that Monday night.
All right, good.
So let's entertain a motion for everything but 9, 11, and 16. No, 12. You don't want 12 either. Hold off on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So all but 9, 11, 12, 16,
9, 11,
right?
12, 16. That's right, yeah, the rest of them you're all okay with.
Yeah. Everybody good with everything else? Alex, you good?
And I should mention the one for Article 2 would include the $15,000 that, and change that the school committee requested, because that's not in the draft motion that I prepared, but it's in the revised draft motion
Right.
that we circulated
So that
to
would
the
be
school
under
board.
item 2?
That's under Article 2, there'd be another $15,000 and
Right.
change in that one,
Just so Article 2 as amended.
as amended.
Identify a motion, or so moved, or something of that nature?
Someone want to recommend Articles 1 through?
Jay says it.
Yeah, move that the Board of Selectmen vote to support the following articles in the October 30th, 2017 special town meeting and direct the preparation of motions to be moved and seconded by said board for all articles listed except 9, 11, 12, and 16,
In Article 2 as
as
amended.
amended.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 It's unanimous.
Great.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
That helps.
Very good.
So we've only got a few that we need to discuss next week. We had a pretty
Shuttle
quick-
update.
Yeah.
I do this real quick.
Yeah.
We're moving ahead with the planning for the shuttle that we had 2 votes. We had 3 votes, actually, to report on. The Montechusett Regional Transit Authority Advisory Board voted on September 12th to approve your request for a shuttle service. That same night, the Westford Board of Selectmen voted to fund their share, $9,000, based on our current projections. And then earlier today, the Crosstown Connect Board of Directors voted to authorize the submission of a proposal to MART from Crosstown Connect for this service. That's the idea, that Crosstown Connect is putting together the service. It's not going to be a town-operated, they will use our vehicles, but it'll be a Crosstown Connect-operated
Yeah.
shuttle during before and after the Council on Aging's run, so
Yep.
beginning of the day, end of the day. So that's great. We are discussing Park and Ride with IBM. Delighted to report that.
They're responding.
They're responding, they have questions, it's great. Don't know what might happen. I guess the worst that could happen is that they say yes, and then we suddenly have to figure out how to
do
get
it.
even more people from, because if there's one run and it's a 12-seater, that's 12 spaces. Would we have the ability to do more? I don't know.
Right.
But these are good problems to solve, and I'm very happy about it. The other thing that I wanted to report from the Crosstown Connect meeting this morning is that I asked during discussion, hey, Acton, you're running a shuttle 11 times a day up to Avalon, Acton. I said, can you slow down as you pass behind? Yeah, and so as you pass behind, the Village Green, the 15 Great Road development, and they said yes, that they would, let's talk about a shuttle stop, so that the folks, and there are 2 pedestrian paths to get out from the Village Green apartment complex to get out to Nagog Park Road. So let's figure out where to put a bus shelter so that the folks who are there can have access to what is a really pretty great schedule, 11 times a day, every hour, It could
Goes to
take
West
it-
Acton T
it
Station.
Goes to, yeah, it goes to the commuter rail station, goes to other shopping villages. I mean, they spend a lot of money. Acton spends a lot of money on its shuttles. And in fact, I've talked to Bonnie about priorities for next year. I said, please find me $50,000 to start putting away for expanding this pilot program, which just does one thing and goes one place. Can we look at, can we have some more room to maneuver of if we're going to get into fixed route service? There's a lot of other needs that we have in the community and a lot of other places we'd like to go to serve, not just the employees, but, the people that are here. So, so I hope to have something good to report about that, but it's
good
wanted to share
update.
that. And then a procedural vote that I would ask for from MART is that as a result of a federal audit by the Federal Transportation Administration, all of the MART communities have had to amend, the MART itself and all of its constituent communities have had to just update their drug and alcohol policy in order to comply with federal law. Just a few word changes here and there. And they had a deadline of last week, so I submitted something in my name subject to your ratification tonight. But it's sort of, if we're going to, but we are required to comply with the current federal drug policy. And so I'd ask your approval of that.
We're good with that?
No.
I'll take a motion.
Okay. Motion that the Board of Selectmen vote to ratify adoption of the MART drug and alcohol policy for MART reimbursed employees as adopted by the Montechusett Regional Transit Authority Advisory Board on September 12th, 2017.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Diane apologizes that there were no minutes, but she's been very busy with supporting all the things going on in the office.
It's okay, Diane, we still love you.
How full is our agenda for the next meeting?
Pretty full,
Is
but,
it?
yeah.
I wanted to talk to you about, oh, okay.
Yeah. You want to do it right now while we're still on camera?
Oh, about inviting, it doesn't matter. Okay. All right, we can talk about it. Perfect.
All right. Motion adjourned? Motion adjourned? Anyone? So moved. Yes. Moved. Seconded. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. We've got a meeting next Monday night, right back here.
When's our
Same
retreat?
time. Next Monday.
Next Wednesday.